set. Ewers with pressure in his face, escapes the pocket, tucks the run. Across the 25, has the first down, stays in bounds and takes it all the way into the end zone.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Another carry for Davey Martinez, cuts it back. Touchdown, number 3.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Youngblood, the man in motion. Simon feels the pressure. Hit as he throws. Intercepted. There he is, Cooper DeJean. And he's got some space in front. DeJean still on his feet across the 25. DeJean is going to take it for a pick 6.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Sanders looking wide open, touchdown, Dylan Edwards.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
This time it's going to be Leonard on the ground. Leonard showing some moves and some speed. A foot race to the 10, to the touchdown. 56 yards. Beautiful run by Riley Leonard.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Hampton wide open running. 30, 25, 20, 10, 5, touchdown Carolina.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Well, hello. Yeah, it's been a while. And back in the studio, Craig and Paul are still not quite so sure they want me near them because of what the surgery and what goes with the surgery. I had prostate removal on the 16th. Everything's gone a lot better than I think I could have ever imagined. I do have 6 bullet holes in my stomach, but other than that, everything is healing very, very well. It's great to be back in the studio. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the downtime, and Paul and Craig and others forced it. Did you not? You did not want me in the studio.
No, I think when anybody has an organ removed from their body, I think you should take a couple of days. I mean, it's reasonable. I mean, we're not, this is not Upton Sinclair's The Jungle where you get back to work right away in the meatpacking plant. You can relax. We held down the fort mostly pretty well. Nobody's perfect, but also we all voted before you got here, and that no matter what, coming back, you were going to sit over there because we did get a pamphlet on the post-surgery symptoms.
Yeah, there's some symptoms.
That pamphlet we wanted you to be able to easily be able to go to another room that's not this one.
I could have done this last week. Because I'm as dangerous now as I was last week.
Yeah,
Craig
I should have read the pamphlet beforehand.
Craig was there the evening of the surgery along with Jennifer, and then also came by the weekend to spend a couple of hours. We enjoyed what we did. And Craig, good to see you in the studio. And unfortunately, your dad has survived, and I'm back.
Yeah.
Whoop.
I don't know about the, unfortunately, my mic not working.
There you go.
All right. Nope. Okay.
Nope. It's not? Okay. All right. We'll try to see if we can do something with that. We have some stories and much more to get to. We do have Pat Smith. The SEC meetings began today. And I thought one of the cool stories was when Mike Elko and Steve Sarkisian seeing each other, the SEC logo behind Oklahoma, behind Texas, etc. We'll have Pat Smith on that today. Bob Thompson on still many of the TV deals that are out there and what it all means, especially now, right now, the one that's up in the air is, of course, the NBA, and that seems to be headed to NBC more than anywhere else. John McClain, Craig's off the radar, Paul's top 5, and Tim Maloney, who met Bill Walton when he was a young coach back in the mid-'90s. Craig has more on Bill Walton, but Tim Maloney with some great Bill Walton stories, too. We'll have that also today on the show. You want to do headlines now, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, let's go, as long as Craig can speak.
Am I on?
There
we
you
go.
Well, we'll let him reverse back to at least the middle part of May when he saw his father in a hospital bed.
What do you?
You're just trying to tug at your heartstrings, I think.
Yeah, okay.
No.
Yeah, I'm glad you're back. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really want to turn this into like some
It's
weird thing.
Yeah,
but,
otherwise it would be like a eulogy. It's not that. No.
Yeah, no. I mean, you had surgery. I think you got a clue in. Sometimes people don't religiously watch, and so we have a lot of new followers, and maybe don't know what you're talking about exactly. But yeah, I'm glad that you're back, and good to be in studio, and hopefully everybody had a good Memorial Day, and glad you're feeling okay, and obviously had a long time off, and know you got antsy, so here you are. So
Yep.
Good to have everybody back together.
I'm
again.
back this week and then off next week with going down to Florida to spend a little bit of time with a family. Craig and I and others will be down there too. So let's look at the settlement, right? The NCAA had this settlement. It was gonna pretty much end everything.
No, we went through it with a bunch of our guests last week, Smokey, that it was like Midwinter was on, some of the people were on. It's not. And this from Ross Dellinger, and perhaps let me pull it up here on my computer so I can read it over here because I'm old and blind now.
I got it. Perhaps some of the information from the settlement documents in here, more on the economic incentive for schools to bring collectives in-house. They can increase cap space by buying athletes' NIL rights and using those rights to generate third-party NIL. Third-party NIL doesn't count towards the cap.
Yes. So what this means, and I know that like a lot of people I think would probably be reticent to have, sell the NIL rights, but that's going to be negotiated by agents. It'll probably be a win for the athletes no matter what, because the market's going to set what they're worth. And so if you're worried like, they're going to buy the NRL rights back and screw the athletes again, no, I think this is just a way for them to control that and to get around the cap, which is arbitrarily right now set at $20 to $22 million. So, I mean, it didn't really change much. It just changed. Honestly, none of this has changed much, other than the delivery systems or penalties or lack of penalties there are for the delivery systems of cash.
I'm not trying to compare athletic administrators by any means and or agents or athletes or whoever else to any kind of roaches. But what happens when exterminators come up with a way to kill roaches?
Well, they're some of the more resilient creatures in the world.
The roaches get tougher and figure out a way. Also, Craig, intended to eliminate collectives, the NCAA settlement has triggered its next evolution. Many are transitioning into university-funded marketing agencies, positioning schools to circumvent the cap and mitigate legal risk. Yet again, part of what we were talking about, we're now, and I spoke with an NIL collective representative, and they said they're being briefed on what all of this actually does mean.
Well, then they can explain it to me, because I don't know nearly enough of what they know to fully comprehend what's at hand here, other than I'm just not surprised that there's already people looking to find the
loophole
and the way to cheat it again. I mean, that's college sports 101, baby. Is if there's a way to try and cheat, there's a way to, not even cheat's the word, there's a way to gain an advantage, let's say that. Somebody will find it. So no surprise that they've had several weeks now as this was all being talked about. Several months, of just knowledge of kind of the back and forth that's going on. But as this deal drew closer to being agreed upon, that still took a little while and gave people plenty of time to figure out, all right, well, if this does take effect, how do we exploit that, or how do we take advantage of that? And so, just as soon as the settlement's quote-unquote agreed upon, although there's not any ink dry yet, they still have to finalize this thing, but for all intents and purposes, it's pretty much finalized. And before there's even a signature put to paper to make it official, there's already schools that know how they're going to counteract it. So not surprised by that. That's college athletics, especially at the top level, is always trying to find a way to have an advantage. And people who thought the collectives were going to be a thing of the past, as soon as this was a thing and agreed upon, were incredibly wrong. I think they're going to be as much a part of it as ever before. They're just going to be more in-house, and it's going to be under – you're going to have, like, people who were working at a collective in their living room are now going to be having an office at, like, the University of Michigan.
Right.
And they're going to be a part of a new wing, a part of the football or whatever athletic department, and it's all going to be still very much a collective-driven, I think, enterprise, just with the guidance of schools and the power of the schools as well. So, collectives aren't going anywhere. And certainly you couldn't have expected that everybody was just going to look at the agreement and say, all right, we're on an even playing field now, nor have been content with being on an even playing field. So, more to come as far as this goes, and more chaos, I think, to follow.
This just allows them to take out the step of, let's pretend like the university doesn't have anything to do with this.
Right.
We talked last week about Florida State trying to, get their penalties repealed because, they had a coach drive somebody to an NIL meeting, which is like, what? Like, how do they, if you don't know where you're going, how did you get there? Like, I don't understand that whole thing in the first place. So now.
Yeah, who set up that meeting?
Yeah, like who said, of course, who?
Everybody.
Like, it's not, if this is also like, if that was what the NCAA was going to penalize, was like dropping kids off, like, what do you, like, your enforcement's going to be really busy. So it gets rid of all that of like, you can't drop it off, or you can send the athletic director and the head coach and everybody else to fundraise for NIL. But when a player asks them, like, hey, can you drive me to the NIL meeting? Like, oh, no, we can't do that.
Or back to the airport if he's a recruit.
Yeah.
So it is SEC. There's meetings going on. Greg Sankey, god of college football. This is a quote from him on when he was asked about collective bargaining. To be in collective bargaining, you have to be in an employment situation. I have not had a student athlete come to me and say they want to be taxed like an employee.
Okay. This is my least favorite, and it's a very disingenuous argument in the people who are against, like, paying athletes or changing it. So, and this is different, like, all the way around, and this is such a weird thing. First of all, if they were taxed like employees, their taxes would be lower than if they are like, I'm an independent contractor, you're an independent contractor. We are responsible as independent contractors for all of our taxes, is where if we were fully employed, then the company takes part of the taxes. There's other ways to do that. So that's actually better tax-wise. Also, the argument, and I've heard this from a ton of fans or people like, oh, well, the tax man's coming. Let me ask you this. Did you like your life better when you were broke and didn't pay taxes, or when you had more money and could do the things you wanted, but the sacrifice for that was paying taxes? I think most people would take employed paying taxes.
Yes.
And as opposed to broke and eating ramen all the time. Like, yes, you might have, had more fun, had more beer, gotten laid more or whatever. But the bottom line is, like, it's better. Like, when I can go on vacation in a plane as opposed to driving 90 miles away and staying at a Motel 6, that's better. If I have to give the government some of the money, fine, it sucks, but, like, not everything can be perfect in life.
Well, there's always the part when we all had to learn this in 2020, after 2020, when we did not have taxes taken out because we were contract employees, and all of a sudden, if you're not smart with the money you get and put some of it back, then all of a sudden there's a larger chunk that would be there owed than if you were having it taken out month to month or every other week when you got paid.
Yeah, I don't know what he was trying to accomplish here, other than he sounds like he wants this cake and
eat it too.
And wants to eat it too. As far as he's basically gotten everything that he wanted as commissioner of the SEC. They have a stranglehold on the power along with the Big Ten, and now he wants to try and put the language out there to make sure that they get what they also want, which is to not have athletes as employees. Yeah. Because no matter how much money they're making, guess how that money quickly starts to get taken away from them?
Yeah.
They have to pay the employees. They have to suddenly pay health insurance. They have to pay all these
payroll
different
taxes.
all these different things. And so as much money as they have, they're not doing this out of the kindness of their heart. It's still a situation where you're trying to make as much money as humanly possible. And I think that to do that, they're going to have their cake and eat it too, which is to have their super conference ideas and their stranglehold on the playoff spots and
larger
more money,
revenue,
and more TV time and everything, and then still hold the athlete back as though they're still just a student athlete and it's all the same that it's always been, which is total BS. But that's Greg Sankey for you, because I don't think that everything the man says is gospel. Some people treat it that way. I think this is one of the few times I've actually seen enough people actually realize, like, what he said is actually garbage. Like, what he said is actually not the standard message, I think, to be out there displaying to the world as far as what college athletics is going to be in the future, or the way it needs to come across, because it does come across as a guy who has his cake and wants to eat it too. And I don't know, man, the more money you guys are making, the harder and harder it's going to be to argue against the employment thing. So good luck with all that.
Also, this was a nugget that was dropped yesterday about injuries. The NFL, of course, have injury reports. And if you mess one of those up, or you play a game with one of those, you could lose a draft pick. You could be fined, but also even lose draft picks if you mess with injury reports. And a lot of it's because of, well, not a lot of it, it's because of gambling.
Well, look, if you want to keep here's where college is running into a kind of a collision course. Obviously, they don't want gambling really anywhere near them, but they do kind of want that money, and they want the interest that money generates. So you get more fans through gambling. The WNBA's popularity is up because of Caitlin Clark, and also you can bet on it now. So used to, they wouldn't give you lines on it because they didn't really follow it. But now, guess what? If I can bet on a WNBA game and I didn't care, and I'm about to make $5,000, all of a sudden I care what Angel Reese does.
Yep.
Especially if I, try to hit the over on her points for the night. Like, maybe I'm going to watch that game. So gambling increases interest for all the good and the bad. The other problem they have is, obviously, there's been some gambling scandals, Iowa State, other places. They're going to keep coming. So that means that you have to do all you can do to force integrity and all the knowledge out into the public sphere, because the more secrets you keep, the more scandal you can create. So if coaches are allowed to keep secrets and be like, oh, he's got a bum knee or a bum ankle or this and that, it could be a couple weeks, but you've got a guy on staff who calls Vinny and goes, hey, 6 weeks, and Vinny knows, then all of a sudden you're not above board anymore.
Okay, you think that with Jim Harbaugh, who's no longer with Michigan, he would treat that the same as Nick Saban would treat it, as Sarkisian would treat it, as Sonny Dykes would treat it?
No, I mean, all different. Look, and some coaches are still high school coaches in their mind, so they don't have to tell you anything, and they don't. But if you make them say it, then yeah. Also, I do think it is insulting to your fellow coaches to think that you're gaining some sort of an advantage, that they're also not smart enough to think that this guy may or may not play, and they'll prepare both ways. The only advantage you get is that maybe you stress them out and take away some practice time for the other guy. But if the starter's out, that's probably going to benefit them anyway. So
yeah, there are people inside each program. There's reasons why the line, Craig, might drop a half a point or a point one way or the other. People know what's going on at practice.
Yeah, they know. I think this is just more of the professionalization, and I think that comes with the gambling territory as well. I wonder how far they're going to go with trying to be like the NFL. I wonder, where that eventually stops. Clearly, it stops at employment. That's the one bridge we want to be like you in every way, shape, and form, and definitely make the money that you make, but we don't want to pay our employees. Oh, wait, they're not employees. That whole thing is not in their to-do list, but standard injury reports, I think, with the amount of money swirling through Vegas and all the other various methods, it makes sense. It's been talked about for quite a while now. I've heard coaches discuss this from all different leagues and backgrounds over the past couple of years, and I think most seem to be on board with it, despite the, feeling that you can maybe gain some type of a slight advantage by being coy about your starting quarterback or something along those lines. But like y'all said, most of the time, and even before gambling got big, people still knew. They still somehow knew. I don't know how they always know, but they knew. Vegas always knows. So I don't think this is, this is a situation where you're really losing out on anything. I think it's just probably better for fans and all parties to just go ahead and make it clear. And yeah, you lose a little bit of gamesmanship, but how much of that was there really to begin with, as we're saying here? So yeah, I think this is something that has been bandied about and makes sense moving forward to have something like this installed.
All right, so Steve Sarkisian, not sure if we have this one or not from Brett McMurphy. Steve Sarkisian on how to make sure coaches are truthful if required to release injury reports. Fine us. That's what they do in the NFL. Craig was just bringing that up. The NFL figured this out. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you don't report a guy, fine us. We all like the money we make.
But you have to do it. It can't be like $10,000. Like, it has to matter, or else I do think there is some coach in the SEC that will sacrifice $100,000 if he thinks that he can get some type of advantage for that. If he can, But if you pop him $100,000 one time, then I think you're far less likely to sit there and screw around again.
Yeah.
But it's like, you got to make it. You got to make it enough of a severe punishment.
You have to make it hurt.
Yeah, to make sure that people don't just go like, whatever, and just move on along and do it again. So if they can make it substantial enough, then yeah, I think the only way to really hurt anybody is to take scholarships. You're not going to do that over an injury report. You're not going to levy any type of heavy penalties. So yeah, the only thing you can really do is hit them in the wallet and make it substantial enough that it hurts a little bit. And I do think that would alleviate some of the concerns about people still trying to game the system, although this is college football we're talking about. So I'd imagine somebody out there is already figuring out a way to get around injury reports if at all possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you say, all right, you do that, it's $50,000. Well, I think somebody's far less likely to continue trying to do that.
I just think it's so old school and old fashioned. Like, it's like 1931 football where there's no line splits and there's no face mask. We're like, we got a secret guy off the bench. We signed him from the coal mine.
Yeah.
Like that kind of
He's
stuff.
33 years old. Yeah.
Okay. Every single game is on TV or the internet, right? So your coaches are going to scout that, and your coaches are going to see a game where on tape, the quarterback got hurt and maybe he came back in, but when he came back in, he couldn't run anymore. He was just kind of sitting back there throwing. So you really think that you saying like, oh, no, I think Johnson's going to play this week. He looks good. And then him not playing is like, gotcha.
Yeah.
No, they know, like, they have whole staffs of guys who are desperate to be coaches that this guy is in charge of breaking down offensive film in the first quarter. This guy's the second quarter. This guy's the third quarter. And this guy's the fourth. And then they've got four other guys on defense doing the same thing and then handing the coaches all these broken down things. So the fact that any information slips through in 2024 is just old school naivete and coaches not wanting to change.
I think it's great for the bettors out there. That's great news for them. They've been begging for this, I think, for quite a while because you do stand to have an advantage because you're not following Texas Tech football on a daily basis to figure out if the quarterback's healthy. But if it's just out there and you're like, oh, wait, their quarterback's out, then I'm going to bet on this Virginia-Texas Tech game or whatever. So, yeah, I think from that standpoint for the bettors, it's great. For the fans to just kind of know for sure, I don't know how much of a difference that really makes. You follow your team closely enough, you can kind of figure out who's playing and who's not. But just to actually know and not have speculation, I think is nice. It's not necessary, but it's nice. And, yeah, I think if you're a coaching staff on the opposite side who has any inclination that the quarterback you're about to play is injured, you're already watching the other guy anyways. Like, even if it's a 90% chance the guy plays, there's still a 10% chance you're still watching film on the backup and preparing for that guy. Mm-hmm. So, I don't think you're, oh, God, I'm glad they said that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been prepared at all for the second-string quarterback. No, if the previous guy was hurt, you're banking on the other guy. There's a good chance. You just don't know for sure because there's no injury reports.
We're going to get to the Baylor uniforms in a moment, but let me ask you guys this. If somebody's leaking information about injuries within a university, within a football program, who is it?
I think it's the lower-level staffers who have enough knowledge and who aren't bound to that school. I mean, these guys, they move around from school to school every year, every couple years. They're not loyal to a school unless you maybe went there and then you're a weirdo like Connor Stallions who are weirdly obsessed with, the head coach. But other than that, I don't think that, look at the coaching staff at any school. How many places have these guys been?
Yeah.
How many people they cross paths with? How many guys do they know on all the other staffs at all the other schools? They all know each other. They all go to the conventions. So I think it's any number of those people, and probably in some cases people who have an old relationship or whatever that maybe don't think it'll be crucial information that's backbreaking, so you're not really backstabbing your current employer, but it's enough of a bone you're throwing your buddy that, or your hope is to eventually go join him at that school, and you think that maybe by doing that you get a leg up in getting that job elsewhere or something. I don't know, but that's where it has to come from. Or the trainers, But, I mean, how deep can it possibly go?
And again, we're not pointing the fingers.
No.
I'm just asking that question.
Well,
it
there's
could
only
be
so
the
many
guy,
people that could know.
Could be somebody that maintains the field.
Could be the dad of the player.
Yeah,
like, for all
exactly
we
right.
know.
Absolutely right. So there was that. So Baylor started teasing this, I don't know how many days ago, but let's say 2 or 3 days ago, about an announcement today at 10 o'clock this morning, and it eventually came out that it was a uniform reveal.
They put out a graphic about a week ago teasing news and said, mark your calendars for May 28th, and didn't really say much besides that, but you put 2 and 2 together, and it felt like it had to be a uniform because what happened was the NCAA video game trailer dropped, and in the trailer there is a clip of Baylor running out onto the McClain Stadium field. It's very clearly them, but the uniforms were different. The uniforms had like stripes on the shoulders, and somebody, I don't know who it was originally, but somebody caught wind of that and was like, wait a second, that's not the uniforms that they wear, and that's not uniforms, that's not like throwback uniforms, and so it was odd, and then it got didn't Baylor put something out, or they deleted the trailer or something along, so then it was like fishy. Then it was like, okay, what's going on here? And then they announced they're going to put out an announcement of something, and so you just put all that together. They announced that
they were going to have an announcement.
And so you put all that together after the kind of coy, weird reaction to somebody spotting the trailer change.
Man, that's a little bit almost overkill to me. But I guess if you just happen to glance and see that, you would notice.
If you know your team and what they look like, and you see them running out on the field with different uniforms, that's notable, especially if you want them to change uniforms. So that's how it started, was seeing that EA clip, and then they tried to play coy, and then they just said, hey, there's an announcement coming on May 28th, and it was pretty clear that it was going to be something uniform related. They didn't say these are brand new. They didn't say these are starting from scratch. They didn't say they were even uniforms. They just said there was an announcement, but that led to a couple days of people going like, they're going to announce something completely different, because that's Baylor's way, would be to hype up something and then have it be like the stadium lighting was the running joke, or LED lights in the stadium, which would obviously not be a huge deal, really.
Right.
And so today was the day to finally unveil it, and they were, in fact, some uniform changes.
Here's the graphic. In fact, this comes from, I think, our own Twitter account. The 3 different uniforms that were unveiled. The left, the right, there's the stripes on the sleeves, as you mentioned, on the shoulders. And then there was also one that was kind of teased off into a distance that was darkened up that looks like it could be maybe a blackout night, whatever. So let's discuss these.
I like them. I think that I get a little Green Bay Packers vibes from the gold uniform. I think it makes the whites and the greens look a lot better. The gold ones always were kind of a tough sell for me, because without any of the accent pieces, it just looked like mustard,
like egg yolk.
Like it looks like, all right. It just didn't have any shape. Like there was no depth or anything to it. It was very bland. Which there's only certain schools you can pull off like one aesthetic. Like Penn State looks fantastic.
Alabama, Penn State, Texas.
Yeah, like there's very few. Like even Notre Dame has their like they veer off the path. And so it just, because of the situation they were in, they got, they got in the subscription Nike level low. This is what they were available to. Now they've got some new things. They've got an alternate uniform, and it was really, I agree with Craig wholeheartedly. They needed to do something, because the one thing I will say that the athletic department has kind of hit a wall on with football is the fans are like, well, we'd like tailgating to be better. And like, I can't do anything about that yet. We'd like this to be different in the stadium. No, you're wrong. How about an alternate uniform? Stop asking for that.
No.
Yeah. How about everything they ask for?
The
they
pregame
just get
music, the atmosphere.
They just get told no. Whether they're right or wrong, well, I mean, the thing is, the customer's always right? So, or at least you have to make them feel like they are being heard. And I don't think that the fans, for a very long time, for the last 3 years or so, have been heard on the game day atmosphere things. And the reason that gets louder is, like, when you're 3-9, everything is a complaint.
Yeah, I don't give a damn what the color of the uniforms are if you're good, because some of those same uniforms were used in 2021.
But also in 2021, they did have some of those complaints. It just
when you're winning, it's a little bit different.
Put it away,
Craig. Honestly, I don't pay a lot of attention to uniform releases. There's some that are just cooler than others. I get it. A lot of times it could be the color schemes. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you see the stripes there up close on that picture, those green and yellow stripes on the pants, I guess that is. It's hard to Yeah, I guess that's the.
Well,
the
of course
pants
it is.
there.
Yeah, that's the thigh right there.
It's a big old thigh. There's the stripes, and that's some of the updates really is just the striping on the shoulders, and I think in some places the collars aren't like they kind of had like a chunky collar, like that still has the collar, but I think the green ones maybe don't have like the big yellow collar like they had. I might be wrong because I've only looked at these for maybe 10 minutes total all day, but I liked them. Like I wasn't expecting rolling in to have like a brand new set starting from scratch, like specifically designed. See, like that
the
had,
green
like,
ones
yellow,
there. Yep.
Did it not?
Yep.
Like a big yellow collar. And
Yep.
I think
love that.
those look great.
I love that rather with the collar not yellow.
Yeah,
gold,
I think those
whatever.
look great. I think those look really sharp. I think the whites look really good. I think the yellows are definitely not everybody's favorite because some people think they're pea yellow or mustard yellow. And those are that's a color that not everybody's going to vibe with, but they look way better all yellow with the stripes than without the stripes. Without the stripes, you couldn't even hardly tell who it was.
Were there stripes on the legs before in the pants?
No.
Okay.
So with the stripes, that's what's really brand new here. And I guess in some cases, maybe some other things, the lettering's been slightly modified, but that's basically what it is. This is not a new unveiling as much as I consider it to be a freshening up of what they had before, because the base is still there on all these. It's just the stripes and maybe some other tweaks here and there, like a collar on one of them, for example. But I think they all look sharp. I think that you definitely don't need to go all solids all the time. I think there needs to be white, green, white, or white, yellow, green, or I think there's a lot of combinations, and they've played around with combinations even with the ones they've been wearing. So I don't think that changes much. But I do like the stripes. I like the little bit more of the details, and I think they look pretty clean and sharp. And I can understand if you were coming from a place where you saw something about new uniforms and you spent the last week getting your hopes up, as I saw a lot of people do. I just knew that they were going to be disappointed because they were thinking it was going to be the Bryles uniforms coming back, or it was going to be chrome gold. I saw somebody wants chrome green helmets, and chrome green is hideous in my opinion, but everybody's imagination was left to run wild, basically. So that's why I think you see some level of disappointment. There's also people who just don't like this color gold. They want the old gold that RG3 wore. And so, there's all sorts of minor complaints or, I guess, critiques that you could make, but in general, they're better than what they had. They're definitely better than what they had, even if they're not a lot different. I think the stripes make a world of difference, and I think they look sharp and clean, and my biggest thing is if they had just unveiled these when they unveiled the last ones, I think that would have been
more acceptable,
way better at the time when they did the whole flip to like everybody's one brand across the school. Everybody's got the same color green, the same color gold, rather than everybody had like different shades of everything. When they brought everybody under one umbrella, had these been the initial football uniforms, I think there still would have been people who didn't like them because they just preferred the old gold and all that, but they would have been better received, and then whatever we'd be getting now at this point, who knows? But
all right,
we'll have to see in another 5 years.
All right, we cover Baylor, but we cover all of college football. And there are some uniform releases that, like, catch my attention. So, we see the service academies when they're about to play. Let me ask you, is it me? And this might upset some people, and quite frankly, that's fine. Is it me, or is this fan base more sensitive to most anything uniform than anyone else, or is it just because we're closer to the situation?
I think it's mostly because we're closer to the situation, but I also think that they have it's a very complicated and confusing history for them specifically.
Absolutely.
Because forever, Baylor was one of the last all apparel one company schools, one of the last ones to do that. And because of that, you had all these different colors of green and gold throughout the years. So if you're Smokey's age and you went to Baylor, you think that's the real green and gold. If you're my age and you went to Baylor, you think this different one's the real green and gold. Jack and Emery might think another one's the different green and gold. So you have an entire fan base that was never at one point told, these are your real actual colors.
Well, then you had basketball splitting in with the highlighter.
So then you have all these other things that were so different. So it's,
Volt,
yes,
there you go.
So like you had all these things that intersected into what are the actual shades of the colors? Like what are those? And then when you get to the point of like, okay, well, all right, Nike, what do we do? And then Nike says, well, what we're going to do for you is we're going to give you an actual color palette that these are your colors. And you tell us what that is. And so then when Baylor picked that, all these people are like, no. I went to Baylor in 1971. That's not the gold that we had. No, I went to Baylor in 1991. We had a different gold than that guy. And so
And then if you did the Bryles years, you had the chrome
so you had all these different things. And part of it is also
gunmetal.
But like also in 1971, you wore bell bottoms. In 1991, everybody was wearing jams. I mean, like, fashion changes.
Don't forget Zubaz.
I think the yellow definitely have some old school Oregon vibes.
Mm-hmm.
I think the green definitely have the Green Bay Packer vibes. And if you put the yellow helmet on the green jersey, then yeah, you definitely have some Packers vibes. But yeah, there's just a lot of different people with a lot of different tastes and a lot of different flavors they've been offered over the years. When I first got here, they had I don't know, let's say 12 sports that were covered by 3 different clothing companies who had 4 different greens, 5 different yellows. Like, I mean, it was ridiculous. And so it's just amazing to me how many people don't like the actual school color, the yellow. Yeah. They prefer the old gold. I do too. I just think that looks better, but I also know it's not the school color. So I think the biggest disappointment for people, other than those who just got their hopes way too up thinking that this was going to be like 10 years ago, was I guess part of the reason why they got their hopes up was because this was plugged to be a big announcement. And so that just made people feel like, oh, this is going to be a huge announcement. And then they got basically a refresh of things that maybe they didn't like to begin with. And so that's like immensely disappointing. You know what I mean? Because I think people were hoping for like a brand new set, brand new designs, brand new this, brand new that. And it's basically the old ones, but with a little bit of an update.
Would it have been better just to release them without any kind of anticipation?
It would have been.
All right, so there are
I think Baylor's had to learn that lesson a few times now. I think from now on they just drop stuff and let the people react and don't try to even play with the getting your hopes up.
I saw, and maybe I'm wrong, I saw someone react to what you mentioned. It's a uniform release, and the first thing the guy said was, I'm looking forward to being disappointed. Yeah. And it's okay.
Well, because
it's
a couple
not my
times
school.
In the last – I mean, to Paul's point about earlier about serving fans, like they've listened, they changed the DJ, but it took how long? Like it took like 3 years to change the music selection. And so I do think Baylor's got to throw a bone sometimes, and I think that they have, but I think that, you also have fans that get their hopes up. And so maybe next time, just drop it and don't even
move on.
Yeah, don't even bother with the reaction to it. I do think that the fourth one that they did not fully show, I do think that that's, like you said, going to probably be like a dark gray or maybe even a black. My money's on a very dark gray, like an anthracite. I think you've alluded to that in the past, that they had that in the works. And so they'll probably drop those for whatever week they want to debut them.
I think a gray, kind of a gray tint would be pretty cool. Now, again, I don't know that. I'm not – and, again, I don't really care what the uniforms look like. I care about the product of the bodies that are in the uniforms, but I do know – that when you start losing, then everyone's mad at this. And they're across the board. And there are some people in the athletic department, unfortunately, no matter what they do, they could walk on water, save a baby from falling out of a 10-story building, and people would still not like who that is one way or the other. And it's just, it piles up. And it does seem to take away from just the fan base enjoying the moment, which they're used to being under a rock, coming out for a breath of fresh air and getting hit with a meteor.
Yeah. I also think, you got to compare, just go 90 miles in any direction to the rivals of most of the people as they grew up. So, TCU is the true rival. That's the big one. They've not changed. They've had some. But they've not. They've had some, but they're old school TCU fans. They pretty much had the same colors forever. And then as the uniforms changed and TCU continued to do that. And then Baylor stopped doing it, so then your rival's doing it. And then if you're even older and you look at, okay, who else do I hate? Well, I really hate Texas. Well, Texas doesn't change ever, and they're the vision of classic, college football uniform.
If they ever did, the fan base would lose their mind.
Well, they also got lucky enough to where they just kind of have the perfect way to do it. They don't have to.
Right.
And then you go 90 miles in the other direction, and you go to A&M, and they're maroon and white. They've always been maroon and white. They'll throw a black uniform out there. They'll throw an all-white uniform out there. But when you watch Texas A&M, whether it's in 1937, in 1957, in 1977, in 1997, or now It's maroon and white.
Yeah.
It's never like I can go in my dad. I remember just going through my dad's closet after he passed away and taking out what were 3,000 Texas A&M pieces of clothing. There was never a difference in the shade.
Yeah.
Baylor had all that.
Yeah, and so there we are with that, and everyone can have their opinion on that. I am not in the chat room yet. I'll try to set that up because I'm off to the side of the set, but I'll be interested in seeing some of the responses, and if you want to put that in there too, the chat room is there. The text line's available at 254-339-1122.
I think my favorite thing was there was a brief glimpse in a video game that created all this to begin with, of green uniforms with slightly different stuff on the shoulders, and everybody went and said chrome gold helmets and chrome green helmets and all black uniforms, despite having a very clear picture of this slight change in the video game. And then they created this whole list of things that had nothing to do with the picture that they saw, and then they're pissed off and disappointed about it.
Here's the thing.
Or they were going to be that way anyway.
Right.
Yeah, some of them.
The funny part about that is it's far less likely that there's chrome gold helmets coming or that there was a full-scale uniform change other than EA Sports for the trailer got it wrong.
Yeah.
They could have just thrown stripes on it, and then somebody goes to them hey, they don't have stripes.
Right.
And they're oh, okay, nerd, go take the stripes out, and then he does.
All right, Jack, would you put the 3 up again? I'm curious about this, and we're going to move on to the 6 teams in the Big 12 that made the NCAA tournament, or at least the initial parts of it. The right side, you think does that have a little bit of West Virginia to it, or does that have
old school Oregon right there?
Or okay, on the left side, Packers.
Packers jersey-wise for sure.
All right,
Packers.
Yeah.
The striping on the jerseys is just like the Packers.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's just like the
any
jerseys
of those
of
look
the
like
Packers.
any of those look like North Dakota State.
Sure.
Yeah, a little. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, some teams have the colors are. To me, I like I've always loved just white, because it's clear. You can't do that all the time, but it's so much clean. It's a clean look. But they did it. You move on from it. You figure it out. You either like them or you don't. You maybe are going to bitch about them even if you liked it, just because it may be what you're used to doing. I don't know. Now, 6 teams, the last time that Oklahoma and Texas will represent the Big 12. I think there's still the golf tournament is wrapping up. The men's golf tournament's wrapping up. In fact, they're in the match play version. Oklahoma State won the Big 12 title. Oklahoma, UCF, Kansas State, Texas, and West Virginia all make the baseball tournament. Texas will open up in College Station against a really good team out of A&M. That will be interesting to see what happens. Oklahoma, Texas, and Oklahoma State still alive when it comes to the softball as they head to the College World Series. We're coming down to the last time that some of them are a part of it, and everybody else gets to move on officially.
Look, first of all, everybody is playing for first loser to Link Jarrett in Florida State. That's the national 8 seed.
In baseball.
They
were the last one in, I think.
Yeah, that's the kind of almost snub that I want. It wasn't a snub.
Is there
it was
a chip
almost,
on their shoulder?
Who knows? I hope there
was a
they didn't make the tournament
controversy
last
between
year, so.
Coastal Carolina and College of Charleston. There was like an RPI type of thing.
Yeah, but
between some of those.
No, it's I've been watching a lot of it lately. I watched a lot of the tournament games last week, and there's some fun team. Tennessee is a juggernaut, though.
Yeah, either you love their coach or you don't. I like him because he reminds me of me. He's got that edge, chip on his shoulder, doesn't care what he ever says. Craig, your thoughts about the baseball tournament? Anything in particular?
I don't like the format. I think the format's way too confusing, and there's got to be a better way to play this tournament out. I don't like the way that it's set up, but I understand it's new. It's the newness of new teams and just trying to mix and match the format to try and best execute it, but it's a little wonky for my taste, so I wouldn't be opposed to them revisiting how they do things in the tournament. But congrats to Oklahoma State. One of the few times it seems like there's been a sport end this year when it's not Oklahoma or Texas winning the Big 12 championship. That's happened in
since Texas won 15 of them, you're probably right.
It's happened in the majority. I do think there's going to be a very interesting void that's left when they depart over the summer, and I'm not sure quite what that looks like, but certainly there's going to be some holes to fill with those two not in the league anymore. So I'm sure the Pac schools coming in will have something to say about some of those, but it's a great opportunity for a lot of others to jump up and and take advantage of that. And I think Oklahoma State's a program that's primed to do that. And even without them being out the door, they win their second tournament title in the last 5 years. So I think that's great for Oklahoma State.
I have one question. Women's basketball used to play their NCAA tournament first and second round games like on home courts, right? Mm-hmm. Because they had to.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way they're going to have fans in the stands. Now, college baseball is really popular in a lot of different places. We know some conferences more than others. But there still seems to be a real big regionality, except West Virginia gets sent to Tucson.
Yeah.
But I think baseball, is it not good enough now where they can send teams across the country and not worry about making sure there's a regionalization of the first round?
I think it's one of the places where they know they can save money, and they do.
Okay.
I think that's why, because you can save it. It's better to be regionalized in the first
Texas
couple rounds.
Texas is going to College Station.
Yeah. And that's better. You also had to drum up some interest, and I don't know how much people would get excited if you just – Texas.
If it was Duke here in College Station, although they won the ACC regular season title.
But if you say you sent Stanford all the way over to Tennessee, is there going to be as much interest for that as there would be Tennessee playing somebody, especially like an AC, like if Clemson wound up in that regional, they were close, or whatever it is, or Oklahoma going to that regional, that would probably be more interest than.
Like I saw immediately that Texas and A&M were going to play in that regional. Texas and A&M, Texas has to win. They haven't played well of late, and they are good when it comes to the postseason in baseball. Louisiana Lafayette. So you got to still win before you might even have those opportunities. Okay, we're going to take a break. Come back, Paul, with the ACC's best running backs. Is that right? Mm-hmm. We'll come back with the top running backs in the ACC. Craig, David Smoak, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and this is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas. My dentist is Dr. Steve Childress and has done a lot of work with me. And I needed it because there was too many years where I just kind of did enough, and then eventually caught up with me with having a tooth pulled too, having decay with cavities, and then even in some particular cases, my front bridge got a little bit loose because, well, it was time. Dr. Steve Childress has taken care of so much of my dental work and also given me the game plan to make sure I stay ahead of it rather than trying to react to it. Dr. Steve Childress and a staff of great hygienists and other dentists as well, the techs and the specialists, those who help you even with the appointment when you walk through the front door. It's a great place. It's Stonewood Dental. My dentist, Dr. Steve Childress in Robinson, Texas.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
I will say this, and again, off to the side of the set, it's great to be back. It really is. There were days I enjoyed not having to come to the studio because I needed to rest, but coming off the surgery I had on May the 16th, it's great to be back, and I was able to check in when I could. I listened a lot on the app, which we don't bring up enough. I listened to the app if I was driving around town, but appreciate some of those of you who did reach out to me while I was gone, and Craig and Paul and Emery and Jack and Garrett and everyone else with an incredible job during that time.
Yeah, I think chat probably missed you because we didn't delve as much into that as you do. On a consistent basis.
Is that why I'm in a better mood?
Yeah, they're thrilled to have you back.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure chat will be excited to have you back in there fighting with them in no time and rile them back up. But yeah, good to have you back, and that's good to be just kind of all back as one again, because it's been a little while, and it's going to be hit or miss. Kind of gets moving forward a little bit, but this week we've got it back to normal.
All right.
We promised we'll never do what Mike and Mike had to do for 2 full years while there was the contract dispute.
Oh, yeah, are they both there or not?
Yeah. All of a sudden it's like, hey, it's Mike and other guys. And a different Mike and other guys.
Well, we'll have that over the next couple of months because of vacations, anything that was already scheduled. All right, so while all was gone, you guys previewed the best or highest graded running backs in a couple of conferences. Tomorrow, the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Today, here's the graphic. And you can kind of go along with this. I thought Omarion Hampton or Ott would be 1 and 2, but Desmond Reed of Pittsburgh at the top at 89.1.
Yeah, that one does. Omarion Hampton being second was a little bit of surprise. Jay not being where he is, not a surprise at all. The fact that you've got 2 Boston College running backs, no FSU running back in Lawrence Tolafili, who's coming back. Mark Fletcher graded over Damian Martinez, and this is PFF. Again, part of the reason is, we like debating this because we're kind of confused at where they get some of their grades, but I would not put Mark Fletcher based on his performance last year, although I don't think he's a bad player, over Damian Martinez, nor would I put most of the running backs on this list over Damian Martinez, Greg.
I wouldn't either. I think it's kind of shocking to see that. It's just weird to see all these school logos together, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the weirdest part about it to me is seeing Cal in the same conference with Boston College.
Yeah, I had to take
Miami.
a sec. I had to kind of glance back at that.
Did you think it was a mistake
Okay,
for a
wait
second?
a minute. Well, you guys,
Yeah.
the graphics all messed up.
Yeah, no. So not seeing Omarion Hampton at the top is a little bit surprising, but Desmond Reed had a fantastic year last year, so I think that he's obviously going to be a force. And Jay Knott had a really great year. When you look at Jake Spavital, who's now at Baylor, and what he's going to be looking to do, he's going to have more of a group of running backs than he's going to have had, like the Jaden Ott, the individual running back that's, kind of the star of the show. I don't think that's really going to be the case for for this offense, but he was spectacular for Jake Spavital last year at Cal. So I think that's a really nice addition, and he should be to the conference, and he should be definitely one of the better backs in the league. So, Reed putting him at number 1 after coming over from Western Carolina is kind of a choice just because of the adjustment period that you're likely to go with. So, like, putting him above a guy in Hampton who's already been there, done that, and done it in the league is kind of an odd choice. But I know it's not so much a choice as it's, I guess, however they've graded this. So, good for Desmond Reed. I think he's an excellent pickup for Pitt. But Hampton obviously was the man last year, and I can't read the other ones as well.
Let's go back to Damian Martinez for a second. What does it say about the ACC, whether these rankings are right or not, that Damian Martinez, who was the most coveted running back in the portal, is 5?
Yeah, it says that there's some good running backs in there for sure. Although I will tell you this, like, if we go down to the Boston College guys, Kyle Robichaud and Trayshawn Ward, and I don't mean to be a homer here, but it's still a little weird that Trayshawn Ward, who's at Boston College because he couldn't beat out Lawrence Toafili, is on this list.
Florida State.
Yeah,
and
and then couldn't beat out DJ Giddens at Kansas State is on this list, and so he's transferred twice. So PFS is a little bit different. Like, their grading metrics are different, and that's fine. That's that's what they do, and I'm sure they love us talking about it. I think it's interesting, but it does say that there are good running backs in the ACC. Jaden Ott is going to be the guy who kind of maybe can keep Cal's head above water in the new league, given what they've got. And he is if he was in baseball, he'd be a 5-tool player, because he does special teams, passing game, all that stuff. So
yeah, he's a really good player. So I'd be curious to know, kind of like with every list we see from them, of what all was taken into account. And I'm sure there's some of that language somewhere else. But just for the sake of just getting a glimpse and a snapshot into the ACC, I think they definitely got an intriguing group of backs. I mean, again, Reed coming over, playing Power 5 football for the first time. Can he pick up where he left off at Western Carolina? Hampton, like we've said, obviously had a great year. Ott just making the conference change, but I think he's going to be definitely one of the better players. And Mark Fletcher was good last year. I don't know about having him above Damian Martinez necessarily, but again, that could be factored in by any other number of things that's ongoing. So as far as their formula goes, but Martinez is a great addition for Miami. And Trayshawn Ward, Paul mentioned him. Interested to see what he can do for Boston College.
All right, so there you have Haynes of Georgia Tech. Clemson, well, we're used to who they had. Who was the guy that the running back that Clemson had?
Will Shipley.
The energy bunny that never stopped. Yeah.
But look, and obviously he's going to outshine a lot of people because Jaden Ott is a very similar player to Will Shipley in that you put the ball in Will Shipley's hand, no matter what the situation is, he's got a chance to score just like Jaden Ott. But Phil Maffa is one of the reasons that you see, Dabo up there saying, well, we don't have a running back in the portal who's better than Phil Maffa. That's true. He does. You're probably not. Phil Maffa is a guy who can level some people. He's a big, powerful runner. They had a nice Thunder and Lightning thing going with the two of them last year. Now, Clemson has maybe taken a step back on the offensive line the last couple of years, which was not when they were in their heyday. They went 10 deep. Now they go about 4 deep on the offensive line, and that's been kind of a problem for them over the last couple of years. But Phil Maffa has not been, and again, I would have thought, like, even reading this, that he would have been above a couple of the other guys on the list that he's not above of, just because he's a touchdown guy, really good in the red zone, and moves chains.
Yeah, right. If I was doing this, I'd have Ott probably. I think I'd have him and Hampton above Reed.
Yeah.
And I think I'd have Damian Martinez above Mark Fletcher.
Mm-hmm.
And those would be just
But those would still be the 5, right?
No, I would have Maffa above Mark.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I would have Maffa above Mark Fletcher, and especially I would have Martinez above Mark Fletcher because they brought him in to start over him.
For sure.
Yeah.
And not like Fletcher had stats that were like 1,200 yards and like something that blew you away. I think Martinez was more productive. Now, I didn't check receiving, so maybe that plays into it. And again, this is just their formula. But yeah, if you're just looking at it like standard for just who's better players, and I think there's some switches you'd make up on this list, but should be a good year in the conference. Where's Utah's guys going to rank in this list?
Oh, Utah!
Stop it!
Future big.
I was gonna try to keep from having
No, we kind of have to get into how
we have to.
Well, just a little bit of how ridiculous a rumor that was. In that,
no, it is still,
or is
it's still current.
Yeah. Look, Utah's not going to the ACC, and especially not going to the ACC based on the idea that the ACC is somehow more stable than the Big 12, considering that the ACC is in court with two different schools right now.
And people trying to jump off the ship. Yep.
Stability.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of gullible people on Twitter, and there's also people on Twitter who just want looks no matter what, and that's the name of the game. And I think there was a former reporter or current reporter, I don't know what you'd even classify Dick Weiss as now, but I think he basically saw what was at the very beginning, as I best understand it, an Oregon State created rumor. So let's start there, that it was Oregon State fan or fans that created this total rumor, and then it was picked up as though I'm hearing that, and it's like, okay, first of all, that's completely out of left field. It makes no sense whatsoever. Just on the surface, it makes no sense. And though, because Utah fans, I think some segment of them would love that because they don't want to be in the Big 12 or whatever the case may be. And because there's other people who just love realignment chaos, they don't care to see if it's true or not.
No,
they
I
just
think
want to run
there you
with
go.
it.
There you go. I think that, and listen, we grew a great deal because of realignment and chaos. But someone could throw something up, whether true or not, and people are going to run with it because they're so thirsty for it to see it happen.
One thing we always did was we either let it be known that this is pure imaginary stuff that we're talking about.
The Utah and absolutely. Yeah.
Or we were very clear that anything we talked about was based in some sort of reality. The Pac-12 thing, I don't care how many times people, a couple people wanted to sit there and try to poke holes in it, which turned out you were wrong, absolutely 100% wrong.
Across the board.
But it was all based in reality because there was a TV contract being negotiated that had a bit of a time frame on it. And that was the whole story the entire time. You could twist it into whatever else you wanted to. This right here is based on really absolutely nothing.
More wish and hopeful thinking. Yeah.
Given that it was created by an Oregon State fan, we can just start there, and then was picked up the way that it was, I think is just a sad look into just how much a rumor can pick up steam and then be picked up by quote-unquote journalists and presented as though it's fact, when what you heard was a few tweets you saw on Twitter, and then because you have some type of a background, there's enough people out there that want it to be true or hope that it's true, and they see, oh, he's a reporter, he must be reporting the truth. And it just goes crazy. And
there's also some accounts that have been wrong 100% of the time, that they jump into it and people believe them, whatever. Connor Johnson's an Oregon State fan. Connor, we haven't always agreed on some of our coverage in Oregon State, the Pac-12 and the Big 12, whatever.
We didn't tell them they had a spot right away.
Good luck. I mean, if there's an opportunity there, then good luck to you in Oregon State.
Well, did he have something to say?
No, he was just having fun.
I think Oregon State fans had a ball with that, and I think a ton of fans from all over the Big 12 and probably from Washington State as well are laughing today at the fact that Utah's Mark Harlan felt the need to come out and issue a statement, which unfortunately on Twitter is, well, didn't he do this when the Big 12 was calling? And
that's
you're right,
true.
He did.
A lot.
And you can't respond to every Twitter thing, so you've got to be careful with that. But I think that one caught so much steam over the holiday weekend that he must have felt like we got to say something because this is starting to spiral.
Yeah.
And
there's going to be Utah fans that don't want to be where they are now, and that's fine. Connor Johnson, are we backfilling for Utah when they go to the ACC?
You know what? Yeah.
And are we travel partners with them, by the way, if in fact they end up adding to the ACC? And so there's that.
Yeah.
And I never took any of it seriously. I could see it in my timeline occasionally, never responded, and didn't even really care much about it.
I saw it, my eyes immediately rolled because it just made no sense. And the further I looked into it, the more I realized just how nonsensical it all was to begin with, and kind of was a gag really by the end of it. So, yeah, it caught a lot of steam. I mean, that happens with any following, rumors and things like that, but especially in realignment, those things can really go crazy. And so it was very interesting to just see. There were plenty of Utah fans who were like, no, we want to be in the Big 12. I think the fan base is getting a bit of a bad rap sometimes because some of their more outspoken fans. But no, you're in the Big 12. You're probably going to be there for a little while. And it's certainly, there's no real, backing to the ACC rumor. as Mark Harlan had to come out and try to extinguish earlier today.
I think eventually, if it was just one 68-team college football conference, there would still be realignment talk at some point. When we come back, Pat Smith covers the SEC incredibly well. He'll join us. They have their meetings that began today. Actually, Greg Sankey spoke last night. We'll discuss that with him. Also, Tim Maloney, who met Bill Walton. Craig's going to have much more about him during Off the Radar. Met him back in 1995 at the Naismith Hall of Fame. His memories, and today, Bob Thompson on all of the different TV deals that are out there in sports. We'll get to that. John McClain, Off the Radar, Top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right both day and night.
TexasBeefHouse.com marketing director had an incredible online auction, live auction, of course, in the month of April. There'll be another one just around the corner. But May, people start to get out on the grills. The weather's cleared up. You got a special throughout and some ideas for the month of May.
So May, we consider May, June, and July as grilling month. We've got our jalapeno and cheese patties, our regular Wagyu hamburger patties, our garlic links. Two things that people aren't usually familiar with are our flap steak and flank steak. Those are a large piece of meat that you can cut up and eat with a fajita, or a lot of people will just cut it up and eat like a normal steak. This is our favorite time of the year because it's the perfect weather to get outside and get that grill going.
In the end, did you guys have another great auction? Did it all go well?
We had another fun auction. We had Wagyu brisket at this auction. It was phenomenal. We had so many customers that were so excited. They've given us their feedback on Facebook. We've got a lot of exciting things coming with a new platform that we've got going called Bid on Beef that we'll be releasing in the next couple of months. We're really excited about what the future holds for us.
TexasBeefHouse.com. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids, premium grade East Texas beef from their pasture to your plate. They'll deliver it to you locally. They bring it directly to your door. Farm-raised Wagyu beef. May grilling month, May, June, and July, and there's not a better place to find what you want to put on the grill, whether it's hamburgers, flank, or flap steak. Samantha, there's always that code to get a discount.
Yes, absolutely. Use the code SICK'EM10, SICK'EM10, and get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
TexasBeefHouse.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sick'em 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sick'em365.com.
All right, we are all three. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. Today also Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter in the studio, 365 Sports. Pat Smith, three-man front, and also a part of a monster sports talk radio station, WJOX, joins us on 365 Sports. Pat, thanks for your time. We appreciate your time. The SEC meetings, obviously a lot of eyeballs, a lot of big bangers are talking. Anything in particular, a couple of 2 or 3 thoughts on what has jumped out the most to you?
Well, one thing's for sure. First off, always a pleasure to be with you guys. 34 days away from Texas and Oklahoma officially being a part of the conference. All the entourages are in Destin for the first time, being involved in all the meetings. Just a couple of things that really jumped out over the last 24 hours. One is that Greg Sankey has pretty much telegraphed that there's not going to be much news made this week, basically because of the House settlement last week. That is something that obviously has dominated the conversation amongst all of college athletics. So that is going to be something that he's just not going to have much to talk about or much to add. And as far as the schedule goes, guys, the last couple years, it's been a debate between 8 and 9 games inside the SEC. Now, last year, it was a feeling that the conference was going to move to 9 conference games as opposed to keeping the 8. Well, what happened is they left Destin. ESPN would not pay them additional monies for that extra conference game. So the conference decided we'll stay at 8 until ESPN is going to come back to the table. So they put out a schedule for the next 2 years with an 8-game schedule. So really there's not much of a debate going on down in Destin in regards to what's happening with this conference because the schedule seems dead. You can't really comment on anything because of the House settlement. So there's a lot of what ifs, but main thing is that Oklahoma and Texas are soon to be in the league.
Pat, Greg Sankey is I'll just call him a confusing individual sometimes. And today, I mean, like he either sounds like he's out on the forefront of things or he's causing, certain things destruction. And then sometimes he says things like he did today about employment. Well, I mean, yeah, nobody wants to pay taxes, Pat, but the fees we have to pay so that we can be adults. So would they rather just go back to not having any money and not paying any taxes?
Well, one thing's for sure. He is very deliberate in what he says and how he says it when he says it. Think about yesterday when he spoke to the media for 40 minutes when he got to Miramar Beach, and he basically said, look, I think Congress still has an opportunity here because they just settled this big lawsuit with House and those other lawsuits that they believe now that Congress should step in and they should pass laws and they should try to help out this fledgling organization that's the NCAA. At the end of the day, I think we can all agree that the players are going to get paid, not only those in this settlement, but moving forward. These athletic departments are going to have to come up with between $20 and $25 million a year that typically they would be able to go build a new weight room or build a new softball complex or whatever the case may be. And Commissioner Sankey right now, he's having to answer a lot of questions from chancellors and presidents saying, okay, now we've agreed to this. Now where's our extra income going to come from so that we can still be on top of things along with the Big Ten in regards to this money machine that we produce every year. So it's definitely a step backwards. And when you hear Commissioner Sankey, once again, he's very guarded in what he potentially says. But I do agree with your assessment in regards to the way that he approaches things, that some days it does seem like that he is on the forefront of things that are going to potentially change in this business and then maybe a day behind things. And I think what's going on now with the NCAA House settlement, it's got everybody kind of thrown for a loop.
What's it like to see the Sooners and the Longhorn folks rolling around there? I know it's not like media days with this big throng of players and even fans to some extent. It's administration officials like that. But what's it like to have them not quite official, but pretty much officially a part of the party?
It is interesting, and you guys know it better than we do. But I think the most interesting aspect for Texas coming in the league is the fact that, Texas always believes of themselves to be a lot bigger, or I guess the biggest dog in the conference. Mm-hmm. And now they're walking into a conference where there's a lot of blue bloods in the SEC. And so, where are they going to fit into the hierarchy? And listen, they got a great team this year. I think everybody will agree that they're probably going to be a top 3, easily a top 5 team. They're probably going to be favored when we get together in Dallas at SEC Media Days. They're probably going to be number 2 behind the Georgia Bulldogs. So that's kind of the interesting aspect to this, because obviously the media is leaning into it. But, the administrators and everybody, they've been in Destin the last couple of years. It was just interesting seeing Coach Sark wearing shorts and a hoodie, walking around in the hotel. That was a pretty interesting sight. But for the most part, I think most SEC folks are very excited about having both of those schools in the conference. Now, it might be a different story 6 months from now after you get a little bit of taste of especially Texas fans.
Pat, what do you think comes out of this week that will be new when they have SEC Media Days at the Omni in downtown Dallas in mid-July?
I think one thing, the heavy discussion that I keep hearing, guys, is that, LSU already does this, but Greg Sankey has kind of hinted about, and I know that there's been some working groups about the possible implementation of college athlete availability reports. We see that in the NFL. I'm not really sure if the Big 12 does that or not. I think maybe the ACC may, But as of right now, LSU is the only school that on Thursday, they're going to let everybody know up front, okay, this is who we have available. This is who is not going to be able to practice or not going to be available for the game on Saturday. I think because betting has become so mainstream and there's obviously some opportunities for different schools and the SEC wants to try to stay above the board, I think that's one of the major conversations that they're having in Destin this week. So maybe when you get to Dallas in about a month from now, maybe there's a little bit more movement there, because I would think ultimately Greg Sankey would love for the whole entire conference to adopt to what LSU has, to be very upright in regards to who's available and not available in regards to injuries.
Pat Smith with us on 365 Sports.
Do you think that would something maybe be better legislated overall by all the conferences once the settlement has kind of passed and gotten
Absolutely.
Through?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And the reason why is because you guys know it as well as anybody. I mean, it is such big business. And since the Supreme Court knocked that down a couple years ago, it's also interesting that of all the states that touch each other in the Southeastern Conference, the state that I live in Birmingham, Alabama, we're the only state that does not have a lottery. We're the only state that does not allow sports gambling. And if you ask any FBI agent, they're going to tell you that Birmingham, Alabama, outside of Las Vegas, Nevada, has the biggest, illegal bookmaking business in the world. I mean, it's just crazy. So I think and it's all said and done, I think they would love for a brand new NCAA to dictate that policy. So it is across the board where it's not just the SEC or a couple schools doing it, but it's across the main Power Four schools especially.
Pat, did it dawn on anybody that Nick Saban wasn't the Alabama head coach rolling through there? I know there's, other new faces as well, but was that, just strange at all to see Kalen DeBoer in place of Nick Saban?
Yeah, it's taken a lot of time for folks to get used to that. Of course, Nick is in and out of Tuscaloosa a good bit. He's been on the golf tour circuit in regards to a lot of the charities and things that he's been involved in the 17 years that he was the head coach at Alabama. So, yes, it is definitely different having Kalen DeBoer stand behind a lectern and discuss the issues about this Alabama football team. But one thing's for sure, this conference has a lot of difference. I mean, like I said, Oklahoma and Texas coming in, no Saban this year. You've got a quarterback at the University of Georgia that's suing the head football coach at the University of Florida. So there's still a lot of drama going on around the league. But one thing's for sure, we all kind of miss the Nick Sabans of him kind of preaching and dictating to us policy on certain things. And there's no doubt that we miss kind of Nick Saban holding court on day one of SEC Media Days down in Destin.
There's never been a doubt that the SEC, when they started racking up one national title after another and then what has become just a chunk of them, but even if there was a year that they didn't win a national title, or even right before the start of the surge of LSU and Florida that eventually Saban, that they had everybody's back within the conference, that the conference was as strong as they protected a South Carolina or a Vanderbilt or a Mississippi State or whoever at the time was down near the bottom. Do you think that will always be the case, or if they get bigger and money gets more, that they could ever be where they forget about who was a part of the original conference? Not the one that goes back to Tulane, but the one that has been where it's been the last 35 or 40 years?
That's a outstanding question. I'm going to tell you right now, it's troublesome because I'm a historian. I love the history of college football. I love the history of the Southeastern Conference. And I think that every single day that goes by, we're getting close to what you were just referring to. And I'm going to bring this up. So last year, I go back to the scheduling idea. The main reason why it was split last year of the 14 schools that were talking about it last year in the SEC, 7 of them was 4 going to a 9-game schedule. The other 7 was not. The ones that were not 4 going to an extra game was the smaller campuses around the Southeastern Conference. And it makes sense if you think about it. Every other year, towns like Starkville and Oxford, Mississippi, they would lose out of a home game. And when you're talking about communities and hotels and restaurants and the economic impact on those cities, it's a lot different when you're in Tuscaloosa, a city of over 100,000, or you're in Auburn, a city that's 75 to 80,000. And then you go to a place like Starkville and Oxford, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Auburn, obviously, they could withstand not having an additional home game. But when you're talking about every other year, them losing that big SEC team coming in on campus, that is a huge economic downfall. And so if you look at it, the bigger schools are saying, you know what, we're good. Let's just move forward because that's what's going to be the best for competition in this new expanded college football playoff. But you got the smaller schools, the smaller towns saying, no, we can't lose that additional game against Vanderbilt at home. We're looking at our own, coffers every single Saturday night, as opposed to looking down the road to what would potentially help you or the league out more by having that additional conference game. So to that point, I think we're a lot closer to that of being a conference, of really not really realizing what you used to have from the old school days of having those schools that helped implement this conference many years ago.
Yeah, because there are some in the other, what you call now the Power 4 Autonomy 4 conferences who are bigger, better, faster, stronger than perhaps 2, 3, or 4 of the bottom of the teams in the SEC. And it just seems like that would be weird to leave them behind, but also some of those at the end of the SEC standings would be protected just because of originality. And I hope that we don't even get to that point. I hope that we can maybe stay at these 4 power school conferences for just enough to enjoy it before we do too much,
Yeah.
Which means by tomorrow that changes.
Yeah. Pat, what do you mentioned Jaden Rashada earlier. Billy Napier said that he was happy with or confident in his decision, or like whatever. I don't have the direct quote, but what do you make of how Florida now has to handle this going forward?
Well, it's interesting, guys, because in about another week or so, it's going to be the 1-year anniversary of the NCAA notifying Florida, hey, we're going to investigate you over Rashada and his recruitment. And here we are a year later. Just think of how much has changed within 1 year's time. And I think this thing's going to get slow played, guys. Rashada and his attorney, they keep saying, well, he didn't really want to sue him, but it was a situation where he's seeing a lot of players out there getting screwed over because of NIL verbal deals that's just not coming to fruition. So he wants to be kind of a landmark case moving forward to give the players an extra protection if something does come down and he wins in court. But listen, at the end of the day, I think all of this is going to be taken care of. I think just like it's going to happen with the Florida States and the Clemsons of the world, they're going to be a mediator involved. At the end of the day, he's probably going to get a few $1 million. He's not going to get the $10 million that he's looking for. But I think this thing is going to go away sooner than later. This probably will never make the light of day of a courtroom. I think all parties involved will be able to take care of this in due time.
Pat, great stuff. As always, great stuff. 3-man front. Also, WJOX, a great radio station in Birmingham that covers the SEC and also college football. When we come back, the news yesterday about Bill Walton. Tim Maloney once met him. I reached out to Tim. He's the former assistant coach on numerous staffs. He was a head coach as well, high school and college basketball. We've discussed a lot of things with him when it comes to college basketball. Had his feedback on when the Kentucky Scott Drew rumors were there, the speculation, and how he would respond to the coaching changes. I said, so do you know anybody that knows or played or broadcast with Bill Walton? He sends me a picture of him back in '95 when he met Bill Walton at the Naismith Hall of Fame. We'll have Tim Maloney on Bill Walton, a couple of memories. Craig will have more on that, plus Off the Radar. We're not done. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. 1943, they opened up their doors in Waco, Texas. Locations in Waco and Bryan. 1943, and now they have that new location that's about a year and a half into where they built bigger, better, faster, and stronger on Loop 340 and Highway 6, just a little east of I-35 in Waco. Pipe, steel, and metal, you want to build something, they have what you need. They have the product you need. And they also now have more of it, and they also can get it to you even faster, more efficiently, because there's a larger area for loading bays to load up an 18-wheeler, a hauler, a pickup truck, whatever it might be. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with pipe, steel, and metal. They specialize in metal buildings. They specialize in having product that you need to build something commercial or real estate, and they've been doing this since 1943, where a lot of times locally owned companies don't survive the big box stores in larger companies that come in and just eat them alive because they have a lot of product, and they can also maybe you don't have to pay as much. But Pioneer Steel and Pipe looks you in the eye, handshake every time. That matters. But their product is great. And now what they have is even bigger, better, faster, and stronger. PioneerBoys.com.
Memorial Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco is pulling out all the stops with incredible deals you won't want to miss. Picture yourself behind the wheel of a sleek and powerful 2023 Dodge Charger or Challenger RT. Right now, you can drive home with a whopping $14,000 off MSRP. That's right, $14,000 off. How about a 2024 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab 4-wheel drive for $11,500 off the MSRP? That's right, $11,500 in savings only at Allen Samuels of Waco.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com. At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
When your business depends on technology to stay on track, you need professional IT services you can trust. Carry On Solutions offers managed IT services, network professional consulting services, and cybersecurity. Carry On Solutions expert team handles M365 and Azure migrations, Active Directory assessments, security assessments and hardening, Exchange migrations, Windows Server upgrades, Veeam backup and recovery solutions, and more. In a world where technology is constantly evolving and security is an ever-ending concern, Carry On Solutions will keep your business running by minimizing risk, downtime, and giving you peace of mind. For more information, email sales@carryonsolutions.com or contact carryonsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Here we go, 365 Sports, halfway through the show. And then yesterday's news about the great, and I was old enough to be able to enjoy and understand the greatness of Bill Walton at UCLA, and then, of course, with the Portland Trailblazers, and eventually the Boston Celtics, and his story as a broadcaster. We all know about that, too. Tim Maloney, there's not anybody that I can imagine in basketball that he doesn't have some sort of connection to or know somebody who does. Here's the picture he sent to me yesterday when I asked him, hey, by the way, do you know anybody? You don't have it, Jack? I'm sorry. A picture, do you know anybody with Bill Walton, et cetera? And he sends me a picture in 1995 at the Hall of Fame with Bill Walton. And Tim Maloney joins Craig and Paul, David Smoak on 365 Sports.
That picture was from actually
Fort Myers, Florida. I was receiving an award, and he was the speaker and the person to present it.
Wow.
So he was, and he was just really an amazing person. And definitely, Paul, if you don't get that picture up, you're fired. All right, I'm getting.
Here's the thing, Tim. There it is, right there.
There we go. There we go.
All right. Backhanded, Paul. There you go. Paul just hit it out of the park.
Yeah.
Give him a raise.
Yeah.
Give him a raise.
Tim, great. I'll keep with that. I was at that. Now that this is explained to me, this was 1995. Yep. I was there.
Yep.
I was at this
Wow.
event because
kidding.
Because
wow.
as you know, that's where I grew up. Yeah, I remember
yes,
this. Yes,
I do.
Yeah. So
yes, I do.
Yeah.
And if you remember, he talked about his situations with Coach Wooden. One being that he went to practice, and he had been told, as everybody had been, there was a certain amount of hair you were allowed on your face, which was none, and and a certain amount of length on the top of your do, which was short and above the ears. And Bill came in curlied up and woolly bearded, the big red. And he went up to Coach Wooden and he said, Coach, he goes, I just want you to know I've thought about this and I've considered as you've taught me, and I believe that my hair should not have anything to do with our basketball program, or this particular issue should not be something that we should hold accountable to people, because we all have the right to be ourselves. And John Wooden then looked at him and said, Bill, I am so proud that you are learning and really understanding and coming into your own and understanding these things. And I want you to know, we're going to miss you here at UCLA. The next thing, Bill was on. He said he ran outside. He had 10 minutes before practice. He ran outside. He saw a bike. He didn't even say he found it. And he borrowed it. I don't think he talked to anybody when he borrowed it, but he literally drove like half a block down, got shaved, totally cue balled, and was at practice. Probably a little, after it started, but I don't think John did anything to get in his way. And then he talked to all of us about that relationship. And, what's funny is that was 95. 4 years later, I was in California, and this isn't on my own accord, none of this, right? Paul can attest. If you win a coaching award and you think it's you're an idiot. I mean, you really lost. That's a gift that's given to the we of a team, and anyone that thinks different is in severe need of mental help. But John Wooden, was somebody 4 years later again that I didn't, that I was speaking at an event in California for one of the AAU programs, and I was at Florida at the time coaching, and so they flew me out. But one of my friends was like an uncle to me, Kenny Grant, said, "Listen, Bill Smoak wants to." Doesn't want you to get a driver. You don't get a driver. He's going to pick you up from the airport. I said, your friend Bill? And I knew Bill had played for Coach Wooden way back in the day, probably, either Kareem's time or Bill's time. And so he picked me up. And when he picked me up, he said, yeah, we're going to go visit Coach. And I figured it was the current UCLA coach, which was Lavin. But the answer was we drove to a condo. I saw this fella come to the window. It was John Wooden. And I spent 7 hours with John talking about Bill Walton. So my experience in knowing about Walton was, touched by two men that knew him really well, that award. And I never, and now I love that Paul was there too. I think Bill Walton was an incredibly special player. I mean, his injuries cut short his NBA career, even though it was 14 years and he won 2 NBA championships. He was one of the most skilled guys, just like Kareem. You'd be hard pressed. Everybody has GOAT talk. I think the GOAT talk is more about, maybe the person, making the talk happen than the actual individuals. I think there's a lot of GOATs. But man, to think those two guys, there's no dunk rule, and they had to learn the basketball game by, Coleman when he was at Lehigh, or any, he was somebody that everybody was important. He didn't look at you as, okay, is your celebrity going to increase mine? Is there something in our relationship that will benefit me? That guy was not a me guy at all. That's why I loved watching that dude as a sub coming off the bench. He was such a pivotal player for that championship with the Celtics. And, he was, as you said, man, it could be anybody. I've been to, Beijing, China. I've been to a number of places. It's funny how, the person that's cleaning, an area of the street is as valued as the person that's running the 5-star hotel we're in. Like, people are all, it was a different experience for me. And I think Phil, in truth, had that type of mentality. He had been, on top of the food chain athletically. I think he won 3 championships, or at least 2, and maybe lost 1. But I think they had 80-something wins while he was in college. I mean, he was the best. I think he was the best player of the year. So very, similar to Lou Alcindor and Kareem. Just none of those things. You're on top of the shelf, but he doesn't see a shelf. There's no pecking order for that dude. It's like, hey, like, you're a friend, I'm a friend. What I heard about him too was at his home. I heard this the other day that there would be friends that would just show up and stay over. He was a free man and very much someone that was there for others. How many people in your life can you count on your hand that are really there for you. I mean, and I don't mean that, like everybody can't be there for you the same exact way. Some people have certain resources, they don't. But that's a dude that was all in for everybody. I just think he was a real joy. I didn't realize he had cancer. I didn't realize that that he was going to pass, that he had that, possibility. I didn't know any of those things. And so when I heard, I definitely, I felt, we really have to make sure we remember just who he was, because by doing so, there'll be a ripple effect as you tell the stories about somebody that was like him.
Dave Pasch did a lot of games with him, and if you have a Twitter account and you find Dave Pasch, it's Pasch, I'm not exactly sure, but he has shared text messages after text messages after text messages from Bill Walton to him, asking him about whether he's watching a game, and Pasch is actually broadcasting the game, and Walton just acts like he doesn't know. Hey, you ought to be watching this game. One of the funniest things, and this was so Walton, he goes, hey, have you ever been to Iowa? And I forgot if it was, what's the other guy, Paul Benetti, or it was Pasch who said, no, just like yesterday, I haven't. Have you ever been to so-and-so farms in Iowa? And he that's just who he was. One of the things that I think gets overlooked in Walton's career, and it never should, he was great at UCLA. They were stacked. And then he won the one when he was more of a role player with Boston. But the team that beat the 76ers and Dr. J and Daryl Dawkins and Maurice Cheeks and whoever else, that was a super team. That you see now in the NBA, they tried to do that. And Portland with Walton beat the super team. And I was a huge Dr. J fan. And I'll never forget how they won, because they were the ultimate team.
Ultimate team, man. And think about it. Dave Twarzik, who that's probably not a name everybody's going to remember, was their point guard. Maurice Lucas, they'll remember as he was like a Charles Oakley type, really tough, strong, Lionel Harlan. I mean, as you said, they were a great team. And the thing was, it's not like Bill Walton was averaging 30 a game or 40 a game. If you look at it, how he played, he just created chemistry and produced. He was probably a double-double guy, pretty much, averaging it out for his whole career. He would probably even, if you did the averages, just with the limited minutes he had, he probably played even, did even better because he was in less pain. But, man, what they did was special, that he did it early. And like you said, there was nothing like Philly. Philly was Freak Show Central. And I love Dr. J. At UMass, we got a chance to meet him, and I love him. But, man, he'd get a rebound in the air, and he'd turn, and before his feet would hit the ground, he'd be outlating that sucker.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was so, again, he was during a time in college basketball when there was no dunk rule. They outlawed it when Lou Alcindor came, because it's going to be ugly. And those guys all learned how to catch alley-oops, lay it in. They learned how to be soft off the glass. If you watch him shoot, you could see how pretty his shot looks, making it off the glass. And he wasn't little. Like, he was 6'11", but he was a big dude, like big legs, big arms. I mean, man, he was really one of the greats. I think it was his ankles that he had fused. I think he had some back issues, but his feet had a lot of fractures. People don't talk about that. It was a different time, and it was, a different means to treat things. No different than even, when Bernard King had to go through his first, knee collapse. I was very close with Bernard and was there when he had to go through that for 2 years. And had he not done the other one on a treadmill, after being with Washington and kind of recapturing his 50-point games, he would have played a longer time. But Bill stayed in basketball, man, as a commentator. And listen, not just a commentator. This guy, I mean, Paul, you were there, man. I mean, he'll go up and talk to, players would talk to him, or he'll go up and talk to you and give you really good advice.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be mad. Like, you wouldn't be, if you had an ego, as a player, you wouldn't be mad for a lot of reasons, but the way he'd say it to you, he'd be believing in you before you could even believe in yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that transcended. I think that's exactly who John Wooden was. Never talked about winning. Never once mentioned it, but talked about doing your best. And I listened to Wooden talk about Bill Walton because I told him the story. I asked him in his home, John Wooden, about that story, and he just laughed. And him and Bill Squeak, Bill played for him too. Here I am in a 2-bedroom condo. I used his bathroom, John Wooden's bathroom. Just can you imagine how cool I am? But I was amazed listening to him talk about Walton, about Marine, about Swen Nader, about all of these guys, man, and he'd get calls. And so, hey, Bill Walton, was in terms of the coach he had in college, and I just think who he grew to be and how he accepts coaching. And I mean, he's a lifer in basketball and bigger than life in life.
Tim, we got about 2 minutes before we need to get to the next segment. Paul, do you want to follow up? I was just
going to say, my seats were not that great, but for that event, it was one of those things that was, and this is the glory of 1995, my dad read the paper that Bill Walton was going to be there at the thing, and then called everybody he could to get in the door so that we could go see it.
And surprisingly, he got in. You got in.
I love you, Dad. That's good work.
Yeah,
good work.
That's hustling.
That's hustling. Southwest Florida needs to do that kind of stuff again, man. That was the time probably when Mr. Browder and Mike McNerney and a lot of great people. There's a lot of great basketball people that deservedly need to be recalled from the years gone by, and just a tremendous place. But yeah, having Bill Walton, man, was past special. I'm so glad you were there, Paul. Hey, we're related now, brothers. Getting deep.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. Fort Myers, Florida. Tim Maloney, Storytelling Deluxe. Thank you very much for your time, my man, on Bill Walton, the great Bill Walton, who passed away at the age of 71 after dealing with prostate cancer. Thank you very much, Coach.
Yes, God bless his family and all that morning. There will be joy that'll come in the morning at some point. And love you guys, man. Thanks for always being great to me.
Thank you, and you too. That's Tim Maloney. By the way, because of what I've been through on my oldest brother, again, to Bill Walton, if you're 45 or 50 and you haven't gotten a PSA check, I would suggest you do. You just never know. And I'm not sure exactly how it all affected him. I know how it affected my brother. I know that's why I had surgery 2 weeks ago or so. So please be smart with the PSA check and talk to your doctor about it. Educate yourself.
By the way, he's coach of the team he won the award for. They were so good. They were good.
In Florida?
Mariner High School at Cape Coral. They were good. Teddy Dupay, who I went to middle school with, was their star player.
Teddy Dupay, the guard who played at Florida?
Played at Florida, yeah. So Teddy was their star player, and we were just sophomores then, but obviously different high school. But every chance my friends and I got, we went to go watch them
Teddy
because
Dupay,
they were good because we knew them. So they were really good.
When we come
Ernest
back,
Graham, NFL running back was also on that team.
Played at Florida.
Yeah.
When we come back, Craig Smoak and Off the Radar, Bob Thompson at 5'10", John McClain and Paul's Top 5. A busy hour to come. And this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for all of your automotive needs, and they've been the people you can count on now for over a couple of decades here in Central Texas. Just recently celebrated another anniversary, and they are continuing with that celebration, continuing with that great customer service that made them the people you can count on for all of your automotive needs, as they have been good to me over the past few years when I've needed some work done on my vehicle, body work, or if you need an oil change, you need to get your brakes checked out, whatever the case may be, they are the people you can count on. But it also comes with buying a vehicle as well. Whether new or pre-owned, they've got you covered. You can save $11,000 right now on a GMC Sierra ATX 4x4. Qualified buyers can also get 1.9% financing for 72 months, and military and first responders can save an additional $500. It's also summertime, summer vacation starting up. A lot of families or couples or friends out on the roadways and going to wherever you're going, the beach or to the big city to look around New York, for example. Well, you want to have space for your entire crew and you want to have comfort. So if you're traveling around on the roadways this summer, get yourself a Buick Enclave. The Enclave offering the quiet drive with space-age technology and loaded with all the right bells and whistles as well. Buick right now delivers uncommon luxury at a common price, and you can see that in the Buick Enclave. So come experience a test drive today and save thousands on the new Buick Enclave, save thousands on the new Buick Envision, and military and first responders can also save an additional $500. There are lots also loaded with premium pre-owned cars and trucks as well, highly inspected and ready to roll with 100% credit approval, always the goal. So check out the good folks over at Richard Carr, who built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Pioneer Steel & Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel & Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel & Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. It's a Tuesday, and so Tuesdays and Thursdays we stop down at around 4:45 to take a look at a grab bag of other headlines and other stories of interest around the world of sports, not just within college football. And I think we'll be college football free for the most part in this segment because some of the bigger stuff is, quite frankly, we talked about it all last week with the plans on the future and the coming to an agreement on pay structures and things like that. That was kind of the big headlines. You have SEC meetings going on right now, but we cover that all with Pat Smith, and that's really about all there is as far as college football goes today, at least. So focusing a little bit on the pros here and starting off with a story about the game of baseball. And there are quite a few headlines from that, as a matter of fact, but one that I think warms the heart of fans everywhere as a long national nightmare is finally over, as umpire Angel Hernandez has retired after 3 decades as an ump in Major League Baseball, effective immediately. His career is officially over. The 62-year-old said in a statement that he was confirming the reports that were out there about his retirement and that he had reached a settlement to leave MLB. And he debuted in 1991, but I think everybody has an Angel Hernandez story as far as I think the one thing people, baseball fans, could all agree on is that they did not like Angel Hernandez.
It wasn't that he was a bad umpire, which he was. It was that he didn't give a damn whether or not you thought that. It almost had this, thing over baseball because he was a minority. And then he threatened them. And now he was also a part of the wave of new umpires coming into the league. But when you have every player imaginable, and even managers, all of them don't think he's good, that usually is some sort of a sign that perhaps the guy did not care about what anyone else thought about him, pushed the envelope, and in fact, I think he enjoyed being the asshole.
I think he did too. I think he embraced it. I think he was bad almost intentionally in some ways to just be more of an a-hole. His calls on Wyatt Langford earlier in the year, a lot of people cited those. There was just a lot of inconsistencies, and I think that's where it led us here. Is he's had inconsistencies over the course of his career, but particularly this year. Like when you did see him, the Wyatt Langford example, where he had 3 extremely outside balls called strikes, and it had the Rangers announcers in a tizzy because they were like, how in the world is that actually going on? And that was Angel Hernandez. You just chalked it up to, well, that's Angel Hernandez. That's who he is because that's how bad he is. But this was met with near unanimous, best I could tell, applause and gratitude on the part of Major League Baseball players and reporters and fans, not for Angel Hernandez, but for the fact that he will no longer be a part of the game of baseball, even though he's kind of been phased out.
May 9th was the last time he called a game.
He had not umped since May the 9th. That was right around the time the Wyatt Langford situation cropped up, and he was just not – there's one thing being bad, but he was extremely bad.
He raised it to an art form because he was – and – it's one thing to be set in your ways or believe that you're doing the right thing, but to not ever be he thought he was above criticism. He thought that he was, but the best part about this to me is seeing just the countless people who have gone through, and it's not just Angel Hernandez made a bad call against a team that I like. If you're a baseball fan, he's ruined moments of historic games.
Yeah. The Wyatt Langford example, I know he's a rookie. His strike zone's different. We get that. But that right there was just blatant. And
I think
you know what was great about that?
Honestly,
I gained a tremendous amount of respect. I already thought he was a hell of a player in Langford. He never said a word, walked away.
But just doing things because you're petty, that's bad. There have been umpires who blew a perfect game or a no-hitter on a bad call, and then you can tell it kills them. Oh, man, this was this guy's moment, and I made a mistake and killed it. Angel Hernandez was a serial killer of huge moments in baseball, and when people would ask him about it, he'd be like, his
reaction,
their problem.
You ever gotten you want to argue with somebody or yell at somebody or fight with somebody, and they don't give you any reaction in return? It makes it worse. He was kind of like that. He would maybe wrong. He never seemed to lose his temper.
He threw,
even though things were said about him.
He threw Ian Kinsler out of a game for looking at him.
Yeah. How about the Bryce Harper situation on a check swing?
Yeah.
And he goes, "You swung." And
Harper's losing his mind. Y'all are starting
to
list off all these moments that you can think of just exclusively him and bad humping. And there's a thing today where I think if you're a baseball content creator or a sports website content creator, this is great news, not only because baseball is automatically better, but also because you can put together your 10 click on this pages of.
And some guys are doing it. Some people have been doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, because there's so many bad calls to choose from because the guy was a horrific umpire. He was terrible at his job. Major League Baseball is definitely better without him. He was an asshole. And Good riddance. I'm sorry, but I don't like try to get too personal on here really ever, but I could not stand the guy, and I thought he was bad for the game. And he had not really been around much. Like, he was taken basically away earlier this year. They started negotiating. His lawyers come out and said, and tried to make it very clear that this was his decision. And, of course, your lawyer's going to do that for you. But they had spent the past 2 weeks negotiating since he basically got pulled. So he had not umped that much this year. He also hadn't umped much the year prior.
Yeah, he only played 16 games the year before.
He was in a very limited amount of games. I want to say it was actually 10. Maybe it was 16. No, he worked 10 games in 2023 because he had a back injury. So I don't know what the total was for this year, but the man didn't even ump half of a season over the past year and a half. So we had already seen him sort of not intentionally phased out, but he just wasn't as much of a presence as he had been for so many years prior. And maybe you noticed it, maybe you didn't, but it says something when you umped whatever the amount of games were this year, and we can automatically already think of 2 or 3 moments.
This year,
Wyatt Langford at the very top.
He umped for about a month.
Yeah, of how bad, that's how bad he was. And so I think this was the most damning stat I saw of the many. There were many, but just for the sake of not spending too much time on Angel Hernandez, he worked 10 games during 2023 because of a back injury. But according to Umpire Auditor, which tracks all these things, in 10 games he missed 161 calls.
Yeah, 16 a game.
16 missed calls a game. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, and so it had nothing to do
with
not
just balls and strikes.
It had nothing to do with who he was. Like, that's what his thing was. They have this against me because who I am. No, you suck, man.
Yeah, he used to look. First of all, he's in a union. Mm-hmm. He's in a union. They're going to protect him.
He's untouchable, basically.
And also the fact that he was Cuban-born, and so he was minority, and used that from all indications in his favor because they're not going to fire me because I'm a minority.
Ask the Cuban players that he rung up unfairly if they think it was about him being a Cuban.
I was going to say, he filed the lawsuit, the discrimination lawsuit in 2017 because he was not getting World Series assignments, and he had not become a crew chief for a World Series. So he filed this lawsuit and said it had to be because of his race. And the lawsuit got tossed, and then it got tossed again, or it got tossed in 2021, and then he appealed, and the federal appeals court denied his request to reinstate the case. So he lost the case. He lost it outright twice. But Lord knows if there's anybody that baseball wants to discriminate against, it's the Cubans.
Yeah.
Because, they certainly don't have a presence in I mean, are you kidding me? The Cubans?
Who flood the league with great talent annually.
Like the Cubans of all people you could mention. Like, I mean, what do you say? The Dominicans? Like, I mean, what are you talking
Americans?
about?
Like just Latin Americans.
Yeah, I just found that to be so odd, given the presence, the major presence of Cuban baseball players. I just found that to be silly. Now I know there's probably a black official in the NBA that, despite that league being overwhelmingly African-American, has a case. So it can't just be that black and white, no pun intended, but I just found that to be like, come on, dude. I mean, really? Like, you're being discriminated against because you're Cuban, so you're not working. No, it's because you suck. Yeah. That's why you're being discriminated against, because you're terrible at your job.
Yeah. If any one of the players that he gave those terrible calls to had this kind of statistics, like his umpiring statistics, they'd have been cut a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
That'd been back to Pawtucket for you.
UW fan Jim, and I know we need to move on to something else, but being in a union does not make you untouchable. Baseball just had no balls. And you wonder, it just got so toxic that they finally – so he's going to get a check for being lousy because he's a part of the union and also because of his lawsuit. He's still going to get a check from baseball to go bye-bye.
Not because of the lawsuit. The lawsuit was tossed. He got turned down on appeal.
Yeah, but he still has he's still in a contract or whatever.
That's why they've been negotiating the past couple weeks. And you're right, a union doesn't make you untouchable. But, I mean, I can't speak to my experiences with it either. But that's just kind of, I think, the general sentiment is that you are very much more so protected than without it.
Sure,
And
that's
so he
their
was
job,
certainly
to protect him.
protected by that union, but not untouchable. That's fair. So Angel Hernandez is gone from baseball finally after 3 decades of being terrible at his job, and the entire baseball world celebrates. So see you down the road. Angel Hernandez. But baseball's definitely better as a result of that. So, meanwhile, a couple of other baseball notes, and this is one that's very interesting. But the Negro League records, statistics from the Negro League era are going to be incorporated into Major League Baseball's historical records on Wednesday. And so there's been what I guess it was a recognition of Negro League statistics about 3 years ago, where those were officially entered into like Major League Baseball records. But this is actually integrating them into the Major League Baseball records themselves, if I have that correctly. Paul,
Yes.
Is that the best way to explain it?
Yeah, so that means Josh Gibson now has a bunch of...
I'm going to get to that, yeah. But they did announce something along these lines about 3 years ago, but I think that was just the acknowledgement of these are going to be treated like Major League, like you played in a Major League, whereas this is actually folding them into the Major Leagues so that their records are alongside those of anybody who played in MLB.
Will there be asterisks?
No, there's not going to be asterisks. Now, there is a record that we all thought was going to be a record that's not, but Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, so Bob Gibson, for example, is going to be a guy that we're talking, or Josh Gibson, excuse me, not Bob Gibson, but Hall of Fame catcher Josh Gibson is going to be a much more star-studded man at this point. He only played in the Negro Leagues from 1930 and then 33 to 40 and then 42 to 46, and many people consider him maybe the best player of all time, best catcher of all time, all of these different things. Well, now with those records being added in, he is now Josh Gibson, the new all-time career leader in Major League Baseball in batting average, which puts him ahead of Ty Cobb, slugging percentage, which puts him ahead of Babe Ruth, OPS, which puts him ahead of Babe Ruth, and he holds the all-time single-season records in all of those categories now as well, whereas he wasn't included on lists like that. Now Josh Gibson is the top of those various categories and single season and career, to make it clear, as I mentioned. So that's just one example of how the record books will be disrupted, for lack of a better term, I guess, or changed. Modified as a result of the inclusion. And obviously he's far from the only one that will shake the system up as far as the standings of certain records go. But that's one that's very notable because he immediately climbs to the top of like 4 of them, and not only just single season, but also career. So this is supposed to be officially announced on Wednesday. The Josh Gibson family has already commented, and they're hoping to maybe even turn Jackie Robinson Day. There's been some talk about turning that into like a Negro Leagues Day and honoring everybody rather than just Jackie Robinson. But I don't know about all of that. All I know right now, though, is that the records are going to be acknowledged and put into Major League Baseball history.
So, home runs. This is one that was tricky about Josh Gibson. This is also why I think they can get this through. So he is credited with 800 home runs, but he only has 238 that they know are official because the statisticians would count barnstorming tours and exhibitions in those as well, which pretty much every time Josh Gibson played in a game, you can guarantee he hit the ball close to the fence. Like, that's the kind of player he was. But if they went back and you had to count the Yankees barnstorming tours and everybody else, then Babe Ruth would also have that many as well, you know, all that, because that used to be a thing. They would get on and go on barnstorming tours and play in, you know, Iowa and stuff like that. They played, the Yankees played against Negro League teams, as a matter of fact, on some of those barnstorming tours. But very rare. But it was all the things that happened. But he is not the all-time home runs leader because they can't,
They can't verify.
They can't verify.
Well, and that might be a meticulous thing they never get to, they never can. And so what is just 200 and something?
238 official.
So he's close to the top.
But his slugging percentage, doesn't that include all that?
All that's going to be official.
Yeah, all that's official because they can find it. But yeah, he's the highest, and you know he has the highest single season, 446. You know, for a season which broke, you know, and the thing is, Hugh Duffy had the record at 440 in 1894. So, you know.
All right.
So, for example, you're going to see Josh Gibson now suddenly the top of some pretty major categories all time. Some other just ones that I saw kind of pointed out, and can't go through everything here, but Minnie Minoso. He is now credited with another 150 hits that he had with the New York Cubans, so that puts him over 2,000 for his career, whereas before those weren't acknowledged. So now he'll have 2,113 hits as a result of those being added. You also will have 4 new members in the all-time batting average ranks. Oscar Charleston, Judd Wilson, Turkey Stearns, and Buck Leonard. You'll have
Texas.
3 new players in all-time top 10 MLB in slugging percentage, in Mule Suttles, Turkey Stearns, and also Oscar Charleston, and so on and so forth. So, the record's getting shaken up a little bit as the Negro League.
There are some guys who are Major League Baseball players who played in the Negro Leagues before they entered Major League Baseball, and I wonder how many of those stats.
Minnie
I just mentioned Minnie Minoso.
I wonder, like a Bob Gibson or maybe
Satchel Paige.
That'll be fun. Okay, good.
Yeah, so that they'll have more information on that coming up on Wednesday, but I definitely found that to be pretty interesting. Kind of getting down to the nitty-gritty here. We talked so much about Bill Walton. I don't really feel the need.
Yeah.
You guys, I think covered all the bases there, but RIP to Bill Walton, a one-of-a-kind, truly a one-of-a-kind individual. And I was not always the biggest fan of his broadcast all the time, but I definitely enjoyed a lot of what I heard over the years and appreciated his passion and just his love and like his approach. He was just seemed like a very cool guy. So I'll skip over that and add one more baseball note, though I guess I should mention before I move on to a couple of other stories, and that is the fact that there was a major injury in baseball that could have a huge effect on the race overall, and that is Ronald Acuna Jr. Has torn his ACL and is going to miss the rest of the Major League Baseball season. He is lost for the year for the Atlanta Braves, which is an absolute brutal blow for Atlanta. Torn ACL in his left knee, and he's one of the most exciting players in the entire game and in American sports right now. You hear the huff, and it's not because Paul's a Braves fan. He's a Red Sox fan, but fantasy owners everywhere also dealt with this brutal blow about Ronald Acuna Jr.
He wasn't having a season like he did last year where he had me up at the top of the league. He was
hard, too.
Yeah. I mean, 40-70 last year. The thing, I could have kept him on the roster and stashed him on the DL till next year, but I decided to let him go. This is the second time he's torn an ACL, so I'm wondering how he's going to come back from it. But he's one of my favorite players to watch.
Non-contact injury when he's trying to run the bases.
One of my favorite players to watch when he's on. So it's just a bummer. We're in a really nice period. It sucks for baseball that it's not as popular as it used to be because we're in a great spot right now as for stars of the game. With Acuna, young stars, Acuna, Harper, go on and on. All the guys that are really, really Corey Seager and all these great players. But that's sports.
Yeah, first player to ever pull a 40-70 season, which is pretty freaking ridiculous. And the NL MVP last year, now gone for the year for the Atlanta Braves. So that is very unfortunate news. Are you gobsmacked by 40-70 when you think about that?
No, I remember watching that, following that very, very closely because of guys who were, Bobby Bonds, among others that were in the 30-30 club, and I don't know eventually who was in the 40-40 club, but there aren't a lot, but the 40-70 was insane.
40-70 was insane. He will not be duplicating that this year, so that's a bummer.
That happened the first year. Is that the first year they changed the base, the bags?
The last year? Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you could take advantage of that.
Yeah, it definitely helps.
I'm not saying he wouldn't have done it anyway, but that was something that was kind of also about the same timeline.
All right, so winding down here, I'll save a couple of these for Thursday because I don't think they're really going to expire. I did want to ask you, I don't know how much you wanted to say on this because you were gone, but Grayson Murray, very sad moment in golf, obviously.
He won the first or second tournament of the year, 30 years old.
Yeah.
And there were players on tour last week at Colonial in Fort Worth that were asking about whether or not they had reached out to him, that he withdrew from the tournament. I did not know about his demons. You never know who has the demons. Everybody seems to have a demon at some point. But my God, I was watching the tournament when they threw a picture of him up. I had the sound down, and I thought they were talking about a period of time when he was doing something, and then saw the note that he he had passed away, and then of course his family released that he had committed suicide.
Yeah, they confirmed that a couple of days ago or over the weekend. 30 years old, and the family did say it was a result of suicide. So he called in and canceled his appearance at that tournament, and then who knows what his final hours were like. But a very, very sad story. And you being the big golf fan and not being here the last few days, I just thought I'd give you a second to
it shook some people up. There's no question, as it should.
Yeah, it definitely did, and rightfully so. Minor note here, Texans have agreed to a 3-year, $72.75 million extension with wide receiver Nico Collins, which is quite substantial, but big money headed Nico Collins' way. So Houston gets that done. Meanwhile, there was one other note. Do you have thoughts, or you want to save it on SFA's conference moves?
I was going to try to get they have a new AD.
Yes.
And so we could have a segment on that, but I'm so damn confused on where they are.
They are returning to the Southland Conference after joining the Western Athletic Conference. They will join the Southland or rejoin the Southland on July 1st this summer. SFA leaving the WAC and heading back to a different-looking Southland Conference than when they left back in 2021. There were a lot of departures. A lot of teams were moving around.
All right, the Southland Conference now. Nickel State, McNeese State. Do you have the list of who's still part of that conference? Because some of them went to the WAC.
Yeah, let me...
Sam Houston State's now FBS.
Right, and they're not coming back, it appears. That doesn't seem like it would make much sense on their part.
Too, yeah.
Current full members, Houston Christian, Incarnate Word, Lamar, McNeese State, New Orleans, Nickel State, Northwestern State, A&M Commerce, A&M Corpus Christi, and Southeastern Louisiana. Also UT Rio Grande Valley will be joining as well, so that will be another new member, and then SFA will be joining again, so... the Southland kind of reforming. The WAC, meanwhile, seems to be on its on not so steady legs. The Western Athletic Conference.
I saw that, and I saw a report about it. I have not contacted SFA. I'm not sure if we'll have a segment on that or not, but it's been a whirlwind.
Yeah, I'm not sure it'll call for that, but just thought that was worth mentioning. And then finally, got some playoff action later on tonight. The NHL. You've got the Rangers at the Panthers in a Game 4. The New York Rangers lead that series 2-1 on the road, trying to make it 3-1 against the Panthers down in South Florida. And that should be a nice little contest. Of course, after last night, the Stars winning 5-3 as Dallas area teams just continue to thrive in the postseason. Rangers win the World Series. The Stars now on the cusp are getting very close to getting the opportunity if they can get a couple more wins to go play in the Stanley Cup Finals. And there's also the Dallas Mavericks, who tonight will be in action over on the NBA side of things as they welcome in the Minnesota Timberwolves. Game 4, Mavericks up 3-0. They can close it out tonight and complete the sweep. And, of course, last night the Boston Celtics went ahead and completed their sweep on the Eastern Conference side of the Indiana Pacers. They are in the finals. So
waiting on Dallas.
Dallas or Minnesota, and it should be Dallas, barring just
Minnesota was on a heater, and then Dallas is like the last 2 minutes of each game.
Yep, yeah. Pretty
Pacers
clutch.
Were always competitive too, but that's over. And the Stars scored 3 goals in 10 minutes last night to erase a 2-0 lead at Edmonton.
Robo had a great game, hat trick yesterday, and that was also. I'm not as familiar with like bad calls in the history of hockey, but they called embellishment on a guy who got hit square in the back.
Embellishment.
I love that that's a call in hockey.
Yeah. No, that was a great comeback by the Stars, and so they will be off tonight, but can sit back and enjoy their couple of wins they've been able to get after dropping the first game. But they'll be back tomorrow to try and take a 3-1 lead. And as I said, tonight, Mavericks Timberwolves 7:30 on TNT. Mavericks look to close it out and complete the sweep, and then go face the Celtics in the NBA Finals. Although if they do complete the sweep tonight, it'd give it about like 9-10 days until the actual finals start. But there's a few things.
Yeah, the
off
finals
the radar.
They play like every game about every other 4 or 5 days too. So that might run into November before it's all said and done. Dallas has looked awfully incredible, awfully sharp. Thank you, Craig. Appreciate that. Mavericks waiting. Perhaps it's going to be Boston, just a matter of the Mavericks taking care of business and the Stars winning last night. Bob Thompson, former Fox Sports CEO and executive, joins us on 365 Sports. Bob, thank you so much for your time. So what is the real story on TNT, the NBA? Did they fall asleep at the wheel with that, with NBC getting what appears to be what's going to be their deal?
Hey, thanks for having me on again. One thing you should note, if the Mavs tonight, we have to wait like 10 days for the first game in the championship series.
Yeah, that's going to be fun, huh?
Yeah. Warner Brothers Discovery. I think there were some misplays definitely on the part of Warner Brothers Discovery, including a couple of years ago when Mr. Zaslav came out and said, we don't really need the NBA, which was probably not the brightest thing you want to do when you're about to renew what's one of your, if not your, most important sports rights agreement that you have. And so I think that might have sent a message to Adam Silver and his folks. And, you know, they started plotting a way to, you know, structure a deal that would not necessarily include Warner Brothers Discovery. And I think that is kind of where we're sitting at right now.
What is the domino effect here on everything else? If so TNT, obviously, you know, they sub-license some games for the CFP, which ESPN kind of is, I'm sure, thrilled about because they can turn more of a profit on that. But what does this mean for maybe future deals with NFL and college football and everybody else? If the NBA is moving this way, does this have indications in the market to you?
Well, I think what Adam's been able to do, and Bill Koenig, who's kind of his top lieutenant when it relates to television matters, is structure a deal where they had a number of both linear cable and broadcast networks in the ESPN and NBC, and streamers with Peacock, Amazon Prime, all bidding on the packages. And so they were able to, you know, even in a time of kind of declining regular season NBA ratings, increase the package by 2.5 times, where they'll be bringing in about $7.5 billion. Whether or not WBD gets an opportunity or chooses to match one of those deals with their back end rights, we'll have to wait and see. But you do have some kind of downstream repercussions, and I think the first one, as you mentioned, was CFP games that picked up, that WBD picked up, and that was interesting to me. Kind of an odd one-off, you know, few games. They're probably going to get the games that are up against the NFL games on that Saturday. So that's interesting. And then you look down the road and say, okay, where are they going to spend this $2-some-odd billion that WBD might have been going to spend? And the next thing that's coming up that's really kind of big is the UFC. And so maybe they have made a decision that for streaming on Max and their supposed coming sports streaming service, that WBD is going to want to pile in on the UFC side and run that on TNT and on the streaming services. So there's always a effect that kind of plays out over the next couple of years. But as far as prime properties that are coming up, everything's getting kind of wrapped up. You know, there's some baseball rights that'll be hanging out there. ESPN rejects their Sunday night contract. But for the most part, everything's tied up other than like the UFC.
So, Bob, everybody's lamenting the possible death of the TNT broadcast crew, but it just stands to reason that Ernie might not join them after all the time with Turner Sports, and he's kind of referred to that, although who knows? You make the right offer. Although he's getting later in his career, he could always join. But, I mean, it is as simple as just saying, hey, Charles, Kenny, Shaq, just head on over to Amazon or to wherever I guess the contract ends up.
Yeah, they're in a very enviable position. All of the guys. Ernie, if he wants to go along, I understand he's saying he's going to stay, but the other guys are pretty much free agents, and maybe they move the thing lock, stock, and barrel, including producers, over to a new network. That's not unheard of. You know, when Fox started the NFL Sunday show, they clipped a bunch of guys from other networks and brought them over, and it's not unheard of, and especially with a show with that kind of following, that kind of a chemistry, which would take somebody as a startup years and years and years to get that kind of a show that's consistently so good and so much better than anything else around the NBA. I think they're going to have plenty of bidders.
Did you see them when they kind of finally got that group together with Ernie, Kenny, and then Barkley, and of course there's Shaq and among others? Is that the greatest studio host group ever?
In the NBA, no doubt. I think there's been some pretty good NFL groups. The Fox NFL group was pretty good. I think the Sunday ESPN show with Boomer and Tom Jackson, that was always a pretty good show as well.
Yeah.
So there's been some others, but within the NBA, I even if you harken back to the NBA, NBA on NBC with Ahmad Rashad and those folks,
sure.
I still don't think that touches what you've got over at Turner right now.
So, Bob, I'm sitting there. Someone put this graphic out, and it made me just realize, and we all know how ever popular and powerful the NFL is. But of all of the professional sports, hockey, baseball, everything, and then the NFL and the NBA, there are like 12 or 15 contracts with total dollars. How in the world did the NFL become so, massively more popular? For example, their least popular or their least expensive or moneymaker, $1.1 billion with Amazon Prime Video, is still higher than everybody else and almost as high as both of the NBA contracts. And there's 5 others higher than that. How in the world did it get to be that big?
2 words: gambling.
Okay.
Fantasy.
There you go.
Those are, without a doubt, 2 things that really push the NFL. I think, Roger Goodell has been masterful in, creating extra packages when he needed an extra package. It's amazing. The guy could just, touch the change on, boom, we got a couple of games we can sell Netflix on a Christmas day. It's just like that. And so he's always got something to, throw some crumbs out to people because everybody's interested. And especially, for Roger and the folks at the NFL and the owners, they want to see how this whole streaming thing can translate because, their next deal has a number of years to go, but it also has an out in 4 or 5 years, I think, or maybe 6 years, 7 years, that they can open it back up. And depending on what happens with the kind of conversion to streaming versus, the falling apart of the linear and the bundle and what all these streaming packages are going to end up doing, they might want to reshuffle the deck. And I think that the NFL has been masters at always creating a situation where somebody's on the outside looking in and wanting to get in. And the last one that was out there was kind of Netflix. And so now that they're in, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And if there's a way they can create, somebody else who really wants to play, which is then ultimately what drives up the price.
Bob, do you think that college football can benefit and turn it at all, outside of the playoff that they've already got?
In terms of television revenue?
Yeah, maybe, now that they, you said you're going to go UFC, but they have some places to go, right? I mean, they've got to fill some sports, like they're making True TV all sports now, right? So would college sports be a place they could put some of that, or is that not what they want to do?
Well, certainly it's possible. I think, it's interesting because Turner has never really been in the college sports business other than the NCAA tournament. We used to sublicense some one-off NFL college regular season football games. But other than the NCAA men's tournament, they've really never been too involved. Now, maybe these 4 first-round games, or the 2 first-round games the first year, and ultimately some quarters as well. Maybe that gets them into some things, but But unfortunately, Paul, there's not a lot out there to buy right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the deals are all tied up. Now, maybe they could sublicense something from somebody like they did with the college football. But look, here's something to think on that college football sublicense. Once the NFL came out and said, we're playing on that Saturday and we want the games on Fox and CBS or Fox and NBC, those guys immediately left as potential bidders on those first round games. And so ESPN probably didn't have a whole lot of places to go other than air them all themselves. And so, the NFL is probably not thrilled with college football right now. Apparently there were discussions about this, and the NFL wanted them to air 2 games on Friday night and 2 games on Saturday. And they kind of could have scheduled around each other. But the CFP was insistent on playing the 3 games on Friday or on Saturday. And so the NFL games that in the past have been on the NFL network have been switched to 2 broadcast networks, and they're certainly flexing their muscles. And I think there's got to be some place to have a little bit of a meeting of the minds on this stuff, because if the NFL goes to 18 games and if the CFP goes to say 16 teams, you're going to have nothing but more conflicts, and you're going to have to work together, whether that means the NFL or the college football starts in week 0, and maybe the NFL stays where they're at and pushes everything back and plays, believe it or not, the Super Bowl on President's Day weekend. You create some opportunities where you wouldn't be up against each other so much, but they're going to have to get together on this scheduling thing. And I know it's probably just the first 2 years might be an issue because of where the dates fall. It's going to happen more and more as schedules expand.
Bob, does any of the other stuff, all the extracurricular talk about employees' status and all the revenue sharing, does that fall in like the area of interest of the TV networks and the TV execs that are dealing with college football at all? Or is that such a separate thing that it's a separate thing not to really worry too much about?
Let's see if I can answer this in a way that doesn't cause me problems. So I was involved with the House case as an expert for the conferences in the NCAA.
Okay.
And the idea being that, television never really purchased NIL. It was, they told us they had the rights. And so we never paid anything extra for it. It wasn't something we could sell if we wanted to, because it was just part and parcel of the agreement. I think if the colleges think that, and the conferences think that they're going to go to TV and just automatically get more money because they have to start paying, $20 to $30 million a year in payments, I think they're sniffing up the wrong tree. When a network buys the rights, they buy the rights to not only the game, but also to the images and the likeness of the players who play in that game, and also some minor promotional rights to use those players to promote the game. So I think from the television standpoint, it's good is that it's, hopefully all this noise is going to be settled down. And it seems like there's a path for resolution of this whole, paying players or whatever, compensating players, which I'm not in a disagreement with. I think it's a good thing and it's the right thing, but it's also nice to hopefully resolve these 3 cases, and hopefully that the Judge Wilkin will go ahead and do that, and that there can be sort of a roadmap going forward, at least for some number of years, where we have some level of calmness, shall we say, and we can just worry about the games, and hopefully, realignment's kind of quiet for a while, and all the lawsuits are kind of quiet for a while. We can just concentrate on the games.
Last thing, I know you are busy. Did you help with the Big Ten network, correct, when you were at Fox?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you help the Pac-12 in any way? I know that's ESPN, but were you ever a part of anything with the Pac-12 network, which is now completely dead?
We proposed to the Pac-12 that we do a similar setup to the Big Ten network. Literally, it's a blueprint. I should have taken the documents and just taken out Big Ten and put Pac-12 in.
Right.
They told us they didn't want to go that way, and so we said, okay, good luck. And we had the broadcast rights that just expired this year.
Right.
In fact, I went to the last Pac-12 championship the other day. The baseball was here in Scottsdale. I went down and watched my Ducks lose their last game in the Pac-12. They were selling all the merchandise for like $5. The garage sale. But no, and then there was a couple of times when us or Fox and ESPN separately gave them an opportunity to get out of it, after a number of years. And again, they declined the offers and, kind of went their own way. So that's one of those coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yeah. And why they are now where they are, which is extinct, which is unbelievable. Right. Yeah.
Not quite. Right. I mean, Oregon State and Washington State technically. But Bob, what did you make of the deal that Oregon State and Washington State were able to cobble and put together?
I thought it was great. I think they did a good job. The commissioner did a great job. I think it's a good mix. The CW, it's not the most well-known sports outlet. It's now got ACC, it's got NASCAR, it's got the Live Golf, it's got the Pac-12. 11 games, and Fox has a couple that they're going to do. So I think it's great for them. I think at this point for those two schools, exposure was more important than money. They're sitting on a pile of cash from the Pac-12, so they didn't need a big TV deal. They need exposure and they need relevancy, so that if there is another shoe to drop in this whole realignment world, that they are top of mind as potential candidates to maybe backfill for somebody who's got wandering eyes.
Always the great segment with Bob Thompson on many things, television, networks, etc., streaming. Bob, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. How much of that Pac-12 network stuff did you buy?
I was there for the Friday day, so they hadn't put it on sale yet, so I didn't buy it. Missed that one.
Man, God, the decision-making, and now you wonder why they are where they are, and you gave us some great reasons why. Thank you very much for your time, Bob. Have a great rest of the summer.
All right, guys. You too. Take care. Let me know if you need anything.
Yes, sir. Bob Thompson, Fox Sports CEO.
They offered them the same deal
as the Big Ten Network, which is a monster network.
They said no.
Yep.
Monster. The Big Ten Network is huge.
We're the dummies, though, right? We're the uneducated, dumb folks in the Central
We're the truck
States.
stock conference.
We have this really cool plan. All right. Good luck.
Yeah.
There's a picture next to death by arrogance in like a
no, that's exactly what it is. And they signed off. The Pac-12 network actually signed off.
Well, yeah, all the sports are wrapped up.
It's gone.
So it's going to be whatever Oregon State and Washington State want it to be.
Got anything for sale cheap? Like some gear we can get here?
Well, you just said they had all of the
I wouldn't mind having I'm talking serious. I may go on Amazon tonight.
Yeah.
Remind me to go on Amazon and put a Pac-12 network hat up because it's part of the history of with us, too.
Yeah.
You got to be careful with Amazon nowadays. I'm finding there's more and more knockoffs than there was in some of the...
I've gotten a lot of stuff from China lately.
Yeah.
Have you really? What is it?
More so than normal.
No, I mean, just how, like, I'll like, I need this, and then it comes, and I'm like...
There's just something that I've ordered a couple times, and I got it the other day, and I'm like, this doesn't look authentic. It doesn't look like... And then I go to look up, like, did they change their, like, logo at all or the bottles that they use? And it's nothing, no information can be found. And so just be careful with certain products.
Yeah, I don't order unless it's something I've ordered before that I might need. Yeah. All right, but John McClain's around the corner.
Who's going to know the difference with the Pac-12 gear? We should probably have like a hat or something. But I hate that for the employees. That's terrible.
Yeah.
I hate it for those people. I hate it for the fans of the Pac.
Had nothing to do with it.
Just genuinely good college sports fans. I hate it for all those folks. But there's definitely some people that kind of had that coming in a way, and there was a little bit too much arrogance floating around. But we've already well established that.
John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, and then Paul's Top 5 next on 365 Sports.
Memorial Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco is pulling out all the stops with incredible deals you won't want to miss. Picture yourself behind the wheel of a sleek and powerful 2023 Dodge Charger or Challenger RT. Right now, you can drive home with a whopping $14,000 off MSRP. That's right, $14,000 off. How about a 2024 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab 4-wheel drive for $11,500 off the MSRP? That's right, $11,500 in savings only at Allen Samuels of Waco.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Famed columnist John McClain Tuesdays with us on 365 Sports. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoak in our beautiful studio off of I-35 in Waco. John, we were just talking to Bob Thompson, former Fox Sports CEO executive, and all the money generated, the monstrous power that the NFL has with the TV deals and more. And he said there's two reasons: gambling and fantasy football. It's amazing. And is it amazing to you? Did you see this building to where they now have all the largest TV deals in America?
David, nobody could have envisioned where the money is. The NFL has been the most popular sport for a long time. And fantasy football was a godsend for them, even when they frowned on gambling. And I mean, boy, if you couldn't even spell gambling, much less let the word come out of your mouth. But fantasy football, they saw what an enormous popularity it had become, and also how it brought in a lot of fans who were not diehards, especially women who played fantasy football as well, got in office pools. So they saw that, and then, of course, the courts let them open up to gambling. And the fact, and I think I've talked to you guys about this, the reason they're going around the world to play games now, of course they want to spread the brand, but mainly because of gambling, because all the countries where they're playing, they've had gambling for so many decades, it's second nature to them. And so they think that people overseas are going to want to gamble on NFL games once they get a taste of it. It's the reason they're going to Brazil. They will be going to Paris. They're talking about going to India and China, and it's coming because it just adds more money into the bank accounts. And also, you put a game on, you could put a game on any of the streaming services, and they go worldwide. So you can imagine how many eyes, if you like the NFL, if you've got a taste of it, and you say, okay, I've got Netflix, why don't I check this game out? and you're in another country, and you maybe kept up with a little bit when you were in Sao Paulo. And so all of a sudden they'll be promoting it down there. So it's great for the streaming services, of course, here, but more so in other countries.
John, Nico Collins gets an extension from the Texans. I'll just throw this on the pile of leaves falling for Jerry Jones, although, I mean, CeeDee Lamb is going to exceed that anyway. But Nico Collins exploded last year when he finally had a quarterback that could get the ball to him. And this seems like a pretty palatable deal, short term, 3 years, $75 million maximum. What are your thoughts on it?
Paul, Nick Caserio traded back into the third round to get him 3 years ago. And he flashed his first 2 years. He's 6'4", and he's about 220. And he's really strong, which is one reason he's so good on slant routes, breaking tackles. I think he was second in the league in 25-plus yards per catch for the season. He had 80 catches, almost 1,300 yards, averaged 16.2 and 8 touchdowns. And when Tank Dell went out, people thought, okay, they're going to double him all the time, and he was even better. And he and C.J. Stroud had a special rapport, and he's a really good guy, and he's worked hard. And when you do an extension like this, it sends a message to the rest of the players. If you come in here and you work hard and you produce on the field and you don't do anything to embarrass the organization, you're a good culture fit, you got a chance to be paid. If not here, then by somebody else. So that's a great message for everybody in an organization, not just the Texans, but anywhere. And I'll say this based on everything that the Texans have done in the offseason. That's a team that has been all in.
I was going to ask you that, John. I was going to say, has there been anything they haven't done to better surround their best players, C.J. Stroud, whoever, the defense? Is there anything they haven't done or addressed this offseason?
Well, Craig, one of the things they wanted to do is when you're playing a first-place schedule against 5 division champions, your crossover game instead of Arizona here, like last season, is at Arlington and prime time. And you got 11 games against teams that had winning records, and you play quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, Jordan Love. It's almost endless. Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy, if he's playing by then, Drake May. So they signed 14 defensive free agents, including 5 cornerbacks. They re-signed 4 of their defensive players, and then they drafted 5 of 9 on defense. So they know they're going to have to get better on defense because they're going to get bombarded by those quarterbacks in what could be very big games.
John McClain with us, again, Hall of Fame columnist on 365 Sports. John, what is right now with that lull before the storm when it comes to the NFL and eventually workouts are going on and then training camp? Is there one specific story that is the largest one right now in the NFL?
Let me tell you one that's close to home about the Texans. And very few people, unless you keep up with the Texans, would realize this. They have every position starters set on offense. Now, DeMeco Ryans will never admit that. He says, we want competition. But they do, except for one, left guard. It would be an amazing success story if Kenyon Green, number 1 pick 2 years ago from Texas A&M, Houston native, grew up here, started 14 games as a rookie, got overwhelmed physically in this last season and got a lot of criticism. Well, now he's worked his tail off to come back. If he could solidify left guard like they thought he would when they drafted him 16th overall, that would be so important for this team and, of course, important for him as well. And as far as nationally, gosh, there's so many great stories. I am intrigued. I'm not a big fan of Aaron Rodgers as a person, but I'm a big fan of him as a player. And I participated in the thing today about can he, when he's turning 41, regain the magic? And I said, absolutely. It's not like he got used up last year. He's got a lot to prove. The last time he had a lot to prove was after they drafted Jordan Love. He's won 2 MVP awards, and I think he'll be an MVP candidate here. So I never get enough of Rodgers and the Jets.
John, did the Jets do enough offensive line-wise and all that to make him that? I mean, wide receivers looks like, Garrett Wilson could be a star. Is it basically just the quarterback that they were missing?
No, Breece Hall was coming off that torn ACL, and guys are usually better, 100% mentally back, and I expect big things from Breece Hall in his second year back from the torn ACL. A guy that might be a candidate for Rookie of the Year, Malachi Corley, a wide receiver, and they signed 2 veteran offensive linemen, and they used their number 1 pick on an offensive lineman. And they didn't run out and sign a bunch of Rodgers' buddies, although there's still plenty of time because there's several of them out of work. And then, of course, they got a really good defense. That division, with the exception of the Patriots, is going to be outstanding. The best defense, the best division, of course, is AFC North. All have winning records. If you got to pick a team that's going to go from last to first, it's a no-brainer. The Bengals, now that Joe Burrow's 100%.
Thank you, John. Great to always have
you. Thank you, guys. Second Bears.
There's John McClain, 365 Sports, on most Tuesdays around 5:30 with us on the show. When we come back, oh, by the way, just a tease for tomorrow, former Syracuse star quarterback Don McPherson will be one of our guests early on in the show. That's just a note for tomorrow and much more. This is 365 Sports, and the top 5 is next. Don Chumidor and Coffee Beans. I went by there Saturday and dropped in Cheyenne, Carol, and Ashley. And Carol and Ashley they've sold the store. They have been a part of it since I knew them the first time I ever started endorsing their product, bought cigars from them. Cheyenne's going to hang around and be a part of it. And Josh is now the new owner of Don Chumidor. And he told me, we're not doing anything different with you. We're going to keep doing what you've done for us and vice versa at Don Chumidor and Coffee Beans. 48-foot walk-in humidor, fresh coffee beans, CBD product, including Vita Dreams gummy. If you need a little bit of a nudge to help you fall asleep a little bit quicker than you normally do, and a lot of things on your mind, you're tossing and turning. So they're going to stay exactly who they are. Might be a couple of tweaks they do within the store, but I want to thank both Carol and Ashley for being around for as long as I've known them, even back when they had the store in the same building but a little bit further down, and then they moved a little bit closer, and now where they are. It's just been a great company. Cigars, CBD, THC, fresh coffee beans, great people. Don Chumidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center, just off or between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Cars priced right both day and night at Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue at Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room at Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust at Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McClain County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Well, hello there. It's Paul Catalina's Top 5, presented by Texas Beef House. Today, in honor of Baylor, dropped some new uniforms today. Some nice new uniforms. I'm not putting them in this category, but Jack and Emery and I, it sent us down a Google rabbit hole of terrible uniforms in college football history. And this is my top 5 worst college football uniforms ever. So let's start out. Look, and I'm going to say, I'm not knocking any school in particular, but number one, I'll just tell you, I'm knocking them in particular. But look, UCF, love you guys. Really have a blast every time I go to Orlando. Hope to go back as much as I can to go to games there. But this QR code, that was terrible. This is John Rice Plumlee right there. Great guy. And that's the QR code if you want to, I guess, donate to his NIL or something. But that was just terrible. Right there. That is a really, really ugly jersey. And glad it was only a one-time thing, because the jerseys you have now, which more from some of the ones you had earlier in your history, are pretty smooth. Pretty good-looking jersey. But the QR code, not a fan. Number 4, 2009 Colorado. Thank God Deion Sanders is there, because he would never let anything like this happen. Right here. They have a coach now that brings his own bags in their Louis. This is so far from Louis Vuitton. I don't know how to describe this other than intramural jersey gone wrong. Like, oh, we don't have any more here at the store. We'll take these. This was terrible. It's not even really their colors. And like, hey, I know we like the gold, but how do you guys feel about urine yellow? That, to me, that should have been a no-go from the beginning. Very disappointed this happened at Colorado, but those were the dark ages back in 2009. Number 3, the BYU Bibs. Look at these poor guys. Look, these are manly men here. Tough guys, ready to wreak havoc on an offense. And then it looks like their mom's about to, spoon off peas from their chin. Not good, BYU. And BYU's had some really, really good uniforms. I think BYU fans even hated these. Correct me if I'm wrong, but everything I saw was even from fans going, don't really like that. Just not a good look at all, BYU. The bib, whose idea was that? Just terrible. And of course, now they don't have to worry about this Mountain West logo. They're in the Big 12. They're with the big boys now. And number 2, Sparty and Lime. What in the name of awful video game creation is this? My God. They look like a Caribbean baseball team here. It's just not good. Just not good at all. Would you wear this out in public? And if you did wear this out in public and you were doing anything other than construction work, what's the matter with you? Like, that's too gaudy for Christina Aguilera backup dancers. What are you doing wearing this uniform, Sparty? Just terrible. Just terrible. And of course, the most embarrassing uniform of all time, from the most embarrassing place on planet Earth, Gainesville, Florida. And yes, I will continue to talk trash. This gator skin monstrosity, I mean, there's a little blue and orange in there. He says an orange. There's a little blue. Also, I don't know any Gators that are like gunmetal gray. Like, most of them are like a dark green. You couldn't even do that. There's a little bit of green in the gloves. This is embarrassing. I mean, it's hard to tell embarrassing from a fan base who regularly embraces the wearing of jean shorts. But this one, even for them, is tough. I kid because I love. Except for you, Florida. I don't love you. But this is terrible. This is just awful. Voted unanimously by our staff of 3 as the worst one of all time. Just awful. Embarrassing. Shameful. Do better. And most of them have. But God, do better. That's going to do it for the top 5. The 3 of us are back to wrap it up right after this.
Well, and here we are inside the studio. Thanks to Jack McKenzie for running the mothership today. Also, Emery Winters dialing up 365 Sports tonight, 10:30 on the local CW. We appreciate that. Also, for those of you who have been in the chat room, the text line, always, if you don't mind, hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't. Spread the word. Paul said that he would drink an entire keg of beer.
No, I said I would do a keg stand, which is...
If we got to 50,000, we are now, and that was when we were at 39-something, we're at 44-1 or whatever it is.
44-2.
44-2. So we're closing in on Paul with an IV from a
two of
keg.
Two of the stronger people, or perhaps 3, will have to hold me up by my legs.
I can't.
Well, yes, while I'm upside down, and I have to put the hose in my mouth, and then we'll count.
Okay.
How long I can
1,000.
Yeah.
2 1,000. Okay.
Yeah,
we'll do that.
That's
and
what will
Craig,
happen.
if we get to 100, is taking off the hat for a show.
Yep. So nearly halfway there.
Yeah. There we go.
But not before then. But yeah, we get to 100,000, then I definitely do that, and I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Thanks to everybody that's a part of our sponsorship from start to finish when we started in April of 2020, where we are now, where we continue to go for Paul Catalina and for Craig Smoak. It's nice to be back, at least in a way, in the studio today. This is 365 Sports. Have a great night.